I have a fortune cookie. Should I open it up?
Absolutely. You know,
And
you're now going to have to just start buying them in bulk, and that's
no,
going to
and
be
it's
your
not going to
opening
be
for everything.
not going to be a regular thing.
Too late, already done.
No dough. Let's. Oh, all right. Okay, got to eat the bad part. All right. Take time to reflect daily.
Yeah, it's good advice.
Okay, I'm gonna reflect. Disney sucks.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. That is not in question for sure.
Okay, according to the fans, it's the Star Wars audience. According to Rolling Stone, it's the Star Wars audience. That's the problem.
Yeah, that's the problem. It's the fans that they already drove away. All that's left are their tiny little group of modern audience, which isn't enough to keep them alive, as we were saying all along.
Anyway, we got stuff to talk about. We're going to talk a little bit about the Acolyte tonight because there's some business side news to it. So we're going to bring it up here.
Absolutely true. Absolutely true.
But how are you doing tonight? How's your weekend going?
Pretty good. Have to go back to work tomorrow. Not so fired up about that, but what are you going to do until I become some kind of a big time YouTuber that can, justify doing that, full time? I got to do another job.
Well, did you have a rough week last week?
It was work. Let's just put it that way.
Work is work. Yeah, I got to go to work tomorrow too. But give me a moment while I open up my Keynote because I forgot to add in the current thumbnail because I was doing it last night. But life's going all right. Can't complain. But I'm trying to think. There's good old days. Yeah. You excited about the Atari 7800 news that we're going to get to a little bit?
I don't know because I never had one.
Oh my goodness.
See, that's kind of the problem. It's hard. You can't be nostalgic about something you didn't actually have, So
True.
I don't know.
All right.
I don't know.
Inserting. Nope, that's the nope. Sorry, give me a minute while I get my head on. All right. Well, you know what? We'll just get right to it.
Okay, let's get right to it. You want to say hi to everybody who's here first?
I'll say hi to everyone who's here. How is everybody today? Let's say hi.
Looks like Tim's not only here he's first, and then Big Al says, "Hello, geezers. Have a great stream. Hope everyone had a great week. Has a great week."
I hope so too.
And then Tim says, "If Disney wants to write the show, The Acolyte, off for tax reasons, they should be able to. If they had not released it, that would have been okay, but not after it's out." Well, here's the thing. They already did it with Willow. That precedent is already set. And I don't know. We'll get into it a little bit later, but we'll be talking about the fact that they pulled a bunch of memorabilia related to the Acolyte off the Disney store, but now they're kind of seeming like they might be backing off on it, getting some pressure from the media. We'll talk about it. We'll get into it.
Yeah. Hold on.
Chris P. Good evening, gents. Looking forward to the live stream tonight. Good. So glad. If a show is released, it should be written off, not after it's out.
After it's aired.
If it's not released, it should be written off, but not after it's out. Well, like I said, it's the precedent is already set. My question is going to be, if you mothball it and it's never shown again, and there's no physical media of it, and you put the kibosh and all the merchandise, then how can it still be canon? Just saying, right? They say the same thing about the holiday special. Well, it was shown the once, but then it's never been seen again. It's never been released officially on physical media. No merchandise related to it officially.
So there is no Life Day. Is that what you're saying?
Actually, Life Day has been canonized by other things that have been done in Star Wars, specifically the first episode of The Mandalorian.
Yeah, where they must have mentioned Life Day, right?
Yeah, they did.
So
they had a banner up,
legitimizes the Star Wars holiday special, even though George Lucas wanted it buried, just like he wants the theatrical editions of Star Wars.
I think this goes to another thing, and that's what is canon. Can the rights owner say this is canon and that's holy writ? I don't think it works that way. And again, we'll get into that when we get to the
Well, Anakin appearing as a Force ghost as an old man, as opposed to the young Anakin Skywalker, that's no longer canon, right? If we're going by George Lucas.
Don't know. I mean, that would imply. Actually, I would make the argument if both of them are out there, then that means that it's multiple choice. Choose your own adventure. They're doing. They're giving us the Halloween treatment on Star Wars.
Don't get me started on Halloween. I didn't even watch Halloween Ends, which I know was the third one. I was too afraid to after the atrocious Halloween Kills.
Yeah.
Where I was almost like a remake of Halloween 4 in some respects, because it's like they're making the same
I want them to do
Halloween 4 made. And I'm like,
I want
really?
them to
We're
do
going
one.
this route?
I want one more Halloween movie, and they can call it Halloween this time for sure.
Well, just not do anything more with Halloween. It was kind of a one and done.
I know.
And frankly, I think having too many bad Halloween sequels has kind of tainted the original in my mind. And I know it's not the
no
original
kidding.
fault.
We should just stick to Halloween 1, Halloween 3, Season of the Witch, and that's it. That's the way it was meant to be.
Black Christmas.
Still
my favorite slasher movie. All right, but hello, Jesse Gajardo. Hello, Netter of Netters Network. Thank you. FKHC, Tim, 2005, otherwise known as Tim.
Lady Miss dropping all her flowers for us.
Welcome, Lady Miss. Horizon Talker, Jesse Gajardo. And if I've missed anyone, Geek Flag.
David Pensack.
I think you sent us a story, didn't you? So
yes.
We're going to be bringing that up tonight. Aged Boomer, anyone knows since Disney wrote, they have to refund any of the UK tax credits? That's a good question.
Right.
What do you think? You already talked about this? I don't know.
Well, I don't know. Did they was this one of those ones that was shot in the UK where they took a tax credit for it?
Yes, probably. I don't know.
I don't know. Because I know almost nothing about tax law in the UK, which is a completely different animal from here. So I couldn't speak to that.
Anyway, we like to talk about the good old days.
Or we try to anyway.
But hold on, there's some people, a deleted scenes rate, is that what's going on? Wait, Disney, how about when it comes to the Acolyte, by being on Disney Plus only, no physical media, they will do the same things to do. Yeah, well, yeah, it's becoming, we're going to get into that. Welcome, Leia Plus Size, always good to see you. Welcome, Connie Cleary. If I've missed anyone else, let's just get into it. Let's talk about the good old days, and we're going to go back to the year 2014, which was 10 years ago.
Yeah, it seems like ancient history, but yes, you're absolutely
right. 2014, and we're going to talk a little bit about Live, Die, Repeat. That was originally titled Edge of Tomorrow. It probably still is titled Edge of Tomorrow, even though the title was supposed to be Live, Die, Repeat, because some executive said, I don't understand the title Live, Die, Repeat. Let's just call it Edge of Tomorrow, and then nobody went to see it. It's become a cult classic since then. Have you seen this movie?
I have seen this movie, yes.
We often talk about good old days. I think back to movies of the 80s and all these, great blockbusters. But if you could look back at Live, Die, Repeat, this is a great blockbuster. This was made in 2014. But it was 2014, in my opinion, when the rot started to set in. That's when this whole culture war ignited. It's happened in 2014 because of an events whose 10th anniversary is fast upon us, if not here already.
Yeah.
But Live, Die, Repeat.
Speaking of Live, Die, Repeat, have you seen they're trying to find a new candidate for a disease that may not be named on social media, so they can start it all over again. Welcome, Leia Plus Size, by the way.
I did. I said
Oh,
Welcome
I'm
Plus
sorry, I
size.
missed that.
It's okay. But I reflect. Let's reflect on Live, Die, Repeat.
Yes.
That is Bill Paxton. Remember Bill Paxton when he was still alive? He's in
Oh
this.
yeah.
Okay, that's the long and the short of it. The Earth is at war with an alien menace known as the Mimics.
Okay.
These tentacle-like creatures, it's almost like they're made out of tentacles, but they jump around. They're very fierce, and they have the upper hand on the human race. They have taken over different parts of Europe, Germany. Now they're set ready. Now there's like a front in England, and the English are ready to lead an assault with armies from around the world at their aid. And of course, the United States is involved with the defense of England in this war against these aliens. And Tom Cruise plays a media man. He is a what do you call it? Like a press guy for the military, saying
Right.
saying you know keep 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 on the what do you call it?
I don't know. I don't know where you're going with
Keep
this.
the
So
spirits up. Keep everybody's spirits
oh,
up.
okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Gotcha.
Yes.
So it's a morale thing.
Yeah, he's trying to keep morale up. But the trouble is that he gets assigned to go, with his press team while they're actually assaulting on the beach, and he don't want to do that because he's kind of a coward.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm no soldier. I leave that to the real heroes out there. Ha ha. And of course, the commanding officer, this British gentleman played by hold on, sorry about that. I'm having an off night tonight. Hold on, sorry about that.
Okay.
Tomorrow cast. But I was recently watching this and I think it still holds up. So this movie this movie involves time travel.
Yeah, in a way, it's kind of like I would compare it to a sci-fi action adventure version of Groundhog Day.
Yeah. So he kills one of the aliens, and the alien's blood falls on him. All right. Yeah, and his name is Major William Cage. That's the character's name. And he dies on the battlefield after he gets forced to fight, because he basically gets bumped down to private after he refuses the commanding officer's orders. So he gets bumped down to private, and he gets sent to the battlefield with the rest of the grunts, and he dies on the battlefield. But then he wakes up the same time 48 hours earlier, and he has to fight the same battle over and over again, right?
Yep.
So more of a time loop. Yeah, well, basically, he's stuck in a time loop. It entails him having to get killed to then get reset.
Right.
And eventually he runs. These are the aliens right here. See these tentacle creatures known as the Mimics, and that's Emily Blunt. She has the nickname on this movie as the Full Metal Bitch. That's her name, but her name is Rita Vitrasky. And she helped the leading armies win at the Battle of Verdun. She's she's like one of their best soldiers. And of course, they all use these. I don't want to say it's mech armor, but it's this mechanized armor. It's not like a full mech suit, but it's all around them. And she's been killing the Mimics and has led them to victory. Anyway, while on the battlefield, he's warning her, if you stand there, you're going to get killed. Something's going to fall on you. And then she realizes. She says, come see me when you wake up. And then he dies again, and he goes sees her. And it turns out she used to have what he had. She used to be able to do the time loop. That's how she became so good at fighting the Mimics on this battlefield. Trouble is, she lost it though when she got hit on the battlefield and she got a blood transfusion. And that put someone else's blood in her. It got rid of the mimic blood that was in her, and then she couldn't do the time travel thing anymore.
There you go. Yeah.
And apparently there was another soldier in between her having it, and then Tom Cruise, who also died, who she worked with, and he died and got the blood transfusion. So, yeah, fun fact: the original Japanese character was named Kenji, but the U.S. troops nicknamed him Killer Cage, which is how Tom Cruise's character gets his name in the U.S. adaptation. Interesting. Yeah, this was based on a Japanese light novel. Those are like these short novels. I want to think they're almost like novellas in Japan.
Sure.
Or maybe like normal-sized novels used to be in the West. And they're very popular.
I'll tell you what, some of the best sci-fi films have been based on short stories. Yeah. I think that some of these novels are just too long to turn into a movie. which is why you end up with things like you are with Dune, for example.
Dune. Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, because there's too much to cover in Dune.
Exactly. Even they decided that wasn't it a couple of the Harry Potter books they decided they had to split up.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. But there's Emily Blunt. And here we go. You have your strong female lead, but she's not annoying. She actually has to teach him how to fight the mimics. And the funny thing is, over time, he becomes as expert at fighting them as she is, or anybody else, because he just keeps fighting them over and over and over again.
He's living the same 2 days over and over again, so he gets to try, things
everything
and see
out.
what works. Yeah.
First, he just knows where they're going to show up, so he knows where to shoot each day.
There is an element of video game logic to it, right? Because if you are in real war, you only have one life, whereas in combat in video games, well, I died. I guess I'll try again,
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Well, this is, I know the SNES drunk thinks that the game Super Ghouls and Ghosts, which is based, Ghosts and Goblins, that series.
Yeah.
They think that was the inspiration for this movie, because in that game you get killed a lot, unfairly a lot, but it's almost about memorizing where things are so you can avoid them. Or even how that last week we were talking about Dragon's Lair.
Well, and I was kind of feeling, I'm kind of feeling the same way right now about, not Doom. What's the other one? The game that I've just started playing on
Quake.
Quake, right? It's just like Quake, where it's like you are in the middle of a level, right? You save because you're going to get killed as you go around that corner, and you keep trying until you get past it, and you just keep living over and over and over.
Yes. It's what they call, I think they called a save point into modern games. Is that what the term?
Right.
In the old days, they used to call it a checkpoint in games.
Right.
But this movie made me an Emily Blunt fan. Really loved the design of the jackets in this movie. They look great. Cruise spent 6 weeks before principal photography training in them. Yeah. Oh, these suits apparently weighed 90 pounds. Yikes. Emily Blunt had to wear this too.
Wow.
Apparently she did some intense training. Unlike some other actresses that said they did training.
I was just going to say, I don't remember hearing her complaining about it and, saying she deserved more compensation.
Nope.
Anything was unfair because she's a woman and, she deserves every single dollar for every single hour she had to wear that suit. Just saying.
Yeah, and apparently the ones that had the missile launchers on them, so they were even heavier, and they had to wear.
I would imagine, yeah.
Emily Blunt apparently learned Krav Maga for this. That's an Israeli martial arts for this movie.
It is.
She really got into the role for this. And Tom Cruise, as usual, is being Tom Cruise, just trying to give it his all usually, which granted there was The Mummy, but we won't talk about that one. But this one kind of flew under the radar. I didn't see this in theaters. I didn't catch it until it was on video.
Yeah.
But I think this has held up surprisingly well over the past 10 years. I don't want to spoil too much more, but he has to keep trying different things because eventually they're on this battlefield and it doesn't work, them having to try to the battlefield to find out what to do, because they're trying to find what they call the brain, because basically the mimics are in some ways part of an organism. Like all these creatures are linked. Like you have some creatures that are like the claws, others that are like the arms, and like basically there has to be a head somewhere, and if they kill the brain, that destroys it all, because it's almost like a symbiotic enemy they're fighting.
Right.
But many parts are exposed. And some they are probably not, they're not properly set up. Well, I'm gonna say this, in this movie, you have the one guy that likes to wear a suit without any clothes underneath, and he keeps getting killed every time in the battlefield, and Tom Cruise keeps trying to stop it from happening. She was, that's funny, she was complaining about the suit, and Cruise told her to stop being I'll just say it, pussy. I
remember that. And see, you hear a line like that, and you wonder if that was real or if that was just something that they said because it was just good, witty, a good story to tell, a yarn.
By the way, I've always felt that the slang term "pussy" in this range comes from the proper word "pusillanimous," which is an adjective meaning showing a lack of courage or determination, timid.
Yes.
That's what I think that comes from, even though we think it means something else. That's usually what it means.
And let's face it, when it would have first started being used, the reference to a female genitals would be less common for you to think of in association with the word than, you know, a tiny frail kitten, for example.
Exactly.
Which would also be a logical etymology for the word.
Yes. Emily Blunt's special skill is showing up, doing the work, and letting people enjoy it. Up and coming actresses should take pointers. She's always been a professional. That's why she still has a great career.
Yep.
Don't know why they didn't
she
get her
should
to
have
play.
been. I was going to say they should have cast her to play Sue Storm.
Sue Storm. Everyone would have loved it. She's got a working relationship with Disney. John Krasinski. They already. Oh man, they stuck him. They stuck in Multiverse Madness just to give the finger to the fans.
Which is exactly why I will not go see Fantastic Four. Period.
And if they were having a Johnny Storm that wasn't going to be the one they were going to cast acting anyway, why don't they just go with the guy that played Johnny Storm in the old Fantastic Four movies? Not Johnny Storm, Mr. Fantastic, excuse me.
Mr. Fantastic. Yeah. I don't know, man. It's ridiculous.
Wouldn't it have been funny if in an alternate universe, Johnny Storm, the one played by Chris Evans, was a distant, like, great nephew of Captain America or something?
Well, they've already with
Steve Rogers or something.
With Deadpool, they've already kind of acknowledged that. So that was a great way to do it, actually.
It helps that she's 40 and still smoking hot. Yes, well,
right,
yeah.
Right.
No, I mean, I would have loved to have seen her in Fantastic
Four. It also
makes
the whole relationship between Reed and Sue a little bit less creepy. Yeah. You know, if their ages were just a little bit closer together, and then let the fans come out and say, "Well, she should be a whole lot younger. Should be like Indy and Marion, you know, age difference." It's like, you know what? Shut up.
There's even a bit of a romance, I think, that develops between her and Major Cage in this movie, right? It's
yeah,
I guess I should say private Cage because he gets bumped down to private, but you know, because even though the trouble is he has to get to know her again over a 2-day period each time, or she has to get to know him over a 2-day period each time, and then doesn't know who he is anymore. She has to do it again.
Well, and that's why I said it's just like Groundhog's Day, yeah, where the one side gets to know the girl very, very, very well, you know, because you learn something new every jump, whereas she knows nothing at the beginning of each jump.
Yeah, just really, yeah, exactly. But she used to be in his position though, so that's what's weird about it.
Exactly. So well, that's why she ends up starting to understand, and it's easier for him to convince her. You know, it's not like Bill Murray, you know, saying, you know, I'm God, I can do this over and over again. And she doesn't believe him and never would believe him. And he says this, look, not only am I doing this over and over again, you told me to come talk to you. And she'd be like, yeah, that's what I would tell somebody that was in that position. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
She probably implanted in her head what she would tell someone if she ever figured out, and what she would say to him. So then if he repeats the thing that she already set up in her head that she would say, then she knows. That's probably what it is. She probably set something up in her own head. If I got it, maybe some other soldier will get this too, and then we can meet. And then, I think that's what it was.
And don't be mistaken.
I've wrapped my head around this.
We oftentimes say, I don't know what I would do in that circumstance and whatnot and so forth. And that's true. I think there's a lot of times that you think you might react a certain way and maybe you wouldn't. But I do believe that people in knowing that they will be in or are likely to be in extraordinary circumstances, plan for what they will do so they will be prepared when those kinds of things happen. We had that talk when we were talking about dreams a few weeks back on Friday, and we're going to be talking about that again this Friday with a very specific historical event that happened recently.
Oh yeah, okay. But I'm trying to think, though, but I don't have much more to say about Edge of Tomorrow, aka Live, Die, Repeat. I do think the studio screwed up majorly by not keeping the original title, which was Live, Die, Repeat.
Yeah, it's actually much more descriptive of what
the movie is about.
Yeah, Edge of Tomorrow I guess does have an implication of time travel, but it seems much more wide scope. It's the kind of thing that I would think more like what was that movie with oh, the one that where the dude is near a wormhole or whatever, and sees his daughter when she was young or whatever. What was that movie?
Interstellar.
Yeah. The Edge of Tomorrow has that kind of a scope, like Interstellar.
Yeah,
in sound.
it kind of does.
Whereas Live, Die, Repeat sounds very specific to an individual, which is what this story is.
I did want to make a point. The reason the aliens are winning the war, or at least kicking our butts, because they have this time travel thing. They can know things. They can reset like in time like these. So if they lose a battle, they reset and go back. That's how they're winning the war, because they are anticipating our actions. It's just that when a human gets hit with their blood and dies on the battlefield, then they get it too, so they can do the same thing. But underrated part of this movie. Hold on, Horizon Talker. Cage loses power to loop and has to survive totally new situation at the end. Really puts a capstone on the growth from zero to hero. Yeah, he starts out as a coward and ends up being, I guess just by osmosis, has to learn courage.
Well, part of it could very well be when you've died a whole bunch of times. You know what is
death.
What is that saying? The coward dies 1,000 deaths. The brave man nary tastes of death but once. Unless you're the Music Man, then you say brave man only about 500 or so. But anyway, what that really comes down to is after you've literally died a number of times, you start to go, man, all this time that I've been living and fighting and dying has been borrowed time. I should have died that first time. And I got this little blessing. So if I die now, I already came out ahead, right? By the way, Matanui, I'm sorry. Yeah, I am seeing your points, but there's a lot coming at us here. My question is, where aren't there a million humans that can do this if all you got to do is get covered in their blood? Well, they didn't know this.
And it has to be a certain mimic. It's like these mimics aren't common on the battlefield. Like, they're different kinds of mimics. This is like a glowing mimic. They're more like the general types or the commanding officer types of these things. So people don't run into them that often, and let alone get covered by their blood on the battlefield. These are like special mimics.
And then when it happens, one person knows about it, and then has to try and convince people. Guess what? I'm traveling through time and living the same couple days over and over again. Yeah, right.
They couldn't convince the brass of this. She tried several times and she gets thrown in jail or dissected, she said. Like, basically, she convinced the scientists who also believed in this theory. And that was all she did. She had a scientist on her side. Those are the only two people besides her and Cruz that know the science.
And remember, you only get one shot at it.
Yeah.
If you have to jump back again, you got to start all over again. So that's why.
There are funny scenes where, like, he breaks his leg and while she's trying to train him, says, "Okay, reset," and she's like, "Oh, come on, I just broke." No, boom, and like he's like, she just shoots them. It's like in a video game where, like, it's almost easier. Like, you're down to your last guy and you're not far enough in level. Let me just kill myself and I'll start the sequence over.
It's kind of a joke, right? Because if this was real, you'd be like, especially if I was the trainer, I'd be like, "Yep, sorry, you're fighting with a broken leg is something you have to do. If you can fight with a broken leg, you can fight with two good legs. Keep going, soldier."
Yeah. I will say this. I feel they covered a lot of rules in this, and I tried finding holes.
Yeah, they did a pretty succinct job of it, didn't they?
Still don't have an idea how the time travel exactly works, though. It is kind of magic. I mean, I'm sure it's scientifically based, but it's supposed to be scientifically based, but I'm still not sure how exactly it works and how. I don't want to spoil the end, but it has a great ending, too.
It really does.
Yeah.
So, I think the hard part about this kind of thing is, and I don't know, I think future sci-fi is going to get better at this. We have to kind of try to understand what consciousness is to begin with, to understand the idea of projecting a consciousness back in time and how it could be tethered to certain points in time and so on and so forth. It may not be as far-fetched as we might think. They say the more you learn about quantum physics, the more you realize you don't know anything about quantum physics. So.
Exactly. It's funny. We've been doing a lot of time travel stuff lately, haven't we? Like we've been doing outer range.
I think a big reason that people do that, and look, the rise of sci-fi in general, whether it was time travel, going out into the stars, exploration, stuff like that. When was the big boom for that? The 50s, right?
Yeah.
Why was that? Because we were coming out of World War II.
Yep.
You know?
In fact, this movie has kind of a World War II feel, how they're fighting on.
Yes, it does.
In fact, we're trying to give it that kind of effect. Like this is almost like a World War II type of battle, even though it's futuristic and sci-fi, but near future.
And I'll tell you, speaking of which, time travel in World War II, if you are looking for a good story that involves people involved in World War II traveling through time, check out the Dean Koontz book, Lightning. Definitely worth
Lightning.
It.
Okay, yeah. I'll look for Lightning, and I'll look for this one too, Erased. Okay, but like I said, worth checking out. Never got a sequel, but maybe it shouldn't. Maybe it's.
I agree.
Maybe. I mean, it probably would have been good if the same people were behind it, but maybe it's. I'm satisfied enough with the ending we got, and it looked like a happy ending, and hopefully these two get together. That's all.
It's so much. See, this is my problem with people wanting sequels. They don't think any farther than, I really enjoyed this, I'd like to have a sequel to it. But think about it. Do you really? Where do you expect this story to go? We basically got an ending with an implication of what's going to happen. The only thing they could do is subvert your expectations by not doing what you're expecting them to happen. Because what you're expecting to happen would not be a good story. It would be a good prologue, right? They defeat the aliens. Everyone prospers, and the boy and girl live happily ever after, right? That would be and that's the prologue. You know that in your head, you know that's the prologue. You don't need to see it on screen.
The only thing that I could see them doing in a sequel to this would be maybe another invasion happens later, and Tom Cruise is the one that has to help another new person who gets the time travel thing, and he's like,
he's playing the Emily Blunt type character,
and maybe Emily Blunt's still in it too, but because we don't want to lose her. But yeah, not without Bill Paxton. Yeah, he was great. He was funny in this.
Well, that's true too. Again. We tend to do this too. We think through what story we'd like to see, but another factor you got to take into account, can you get these actors, right? Let's say, for example, they get Tom Cruise and they don't get Emily Blunt. What you do is you ask Emily Blunt to do a very small scene.
Yes.
And it's just a scene of her being in the first attack and getting killed. And that pushes Tom Cruise's character into getting involved. And then when and he may even be very reckless about it. He doesn't care if he gets killed, but then someone else, starts doing the time loop thing, and he goes, "Now we can get I can get my revenge."
No, I don't want her dead. I can't. I'm
saying that's not
be about her trying to save.
That's
her.
not
Jeez.
what you plan.
Okay.
That's not what you plan to do. That's
all right.
Oh. That could be the twist at the end. They end up saving her.
Okay, well, that could happen, yeah. There are a lot of movies I do not need a sequel to. Example, Terminator movies. Apparently, it's getting an anime on Netflix, though, which we're going to talk about more anime adaptations of American properties next coming up. But here we have Geeky Geezers. Are we excited? This is a weird night. I think this is why I just feel off tonight. This is just weird stories. For starters, we have Phil Donahue, and I'm like, what's his tie to geek culture? We're gonna and I'm like, oh, did he do the anti D&D stuff early on?
Let me tell you something. I don't know how geeky it is, but it definitely is pop culture. He is a touchstone for really everyone from our generation growing up. He was like, before he set the stage for people like Oprah and Dr. Phil and, gosh, every one of those kinds of talk show hosts. The morning afternoon talk show host.
Yeah, and he was a we're going to get into what his last show was like, because I have some things to say about MSNBC in regards to that. But
yeah,
not happy. It later came out why that show went away. I thought he was already dead. Well, you know what? He kind of went away from the spotlight for a bit.
Yeah, you got to remember that a lot. When someone dies, at 88, chances are his health wasn't so great, so he leaves the public eye. I honestly, I said the same thing. I didn't know Marlo Thomas was still alive. So our condolences to her. Let's get into it.
Let's get into it. Hold on. Sorry, my computer is running slow for some reason. There we go.
It happens.
Okay. Legendary TV talk show host Phil Donahue dies at 88. Donahue died at his home, surrounded by his family, including his wife of 44 years, actor Marlo Thomas, his sister, his children, his grandchildren, and his beloved golden retriever Charlie, and his family said in a statement on Today. No further details about the cause of his death were released. The third hour of Today's Craig Melvin and Chanel Jones announced the news of Donahue's death on Monday morning. We overuse sometimes that with the word trailblazer, but he certainly was indeed, Chanel said. The journalist pioneered the modern format of issue-based daytime talk show hosts featuring audience participation. His show would become one of the most influential programs of its time, with Donahue winning 9 Daytime Emmy Awards for Outstanding Host. Donahue was born in 1935 in Cleveland and began his journalism career working in radio in the 1950s. He began hosting the Phil Donahue Show in 1967 in Ohio, was a live studio audience. The show was syndicated years later and would move to Chicago before making its home in New York in 1985. There you go, Troy. There's a Chicago connection.
There you go.
The final episode of the show, which has been renamed Donahue, aired in 1996 after a 29-year run. In addition to hosting his eponymous show, Donahue regularly appeared on Today from 1979 to 1988. Thomas, an Emmy Award-winning actor and National Outreach Director for St. Jude Children's, has also made appearance on Today. That must have been his wife, right? Marlo Thomas. Donahue returned to TV briefly in 2002 when he began a host called Donahue on MSNBC, which was canceled several months later. Do you know why it was canceled?
No, I don't.
Because he came out verbally against the war in Iraq. He said we shouldn't be over there.
Interesting.
And MSNBC, as with a lot of the so-called even liberal news back then, they would toe the line for the wars back at the time.
Yeah, we're learning a lot about how statism wants to silence the populists.
That's why Ashley Banfield's career took a nosedive too. She also came out against the Iraq War. So, whether or not you agreed with the fact we should have been over there, he had a right to exercise his opinion that we shouldn't be there. And I think it was ridiculous that a show got canceled over that. But that's just my opinion. Junie continued to ask a boyfriend who said, "I want to see other people." She replied, "Watch Donahue." But yeah, no, I remember Phil Donahue. He was always on TV. He was on before Oprah, right? Before doing the daytime thing.
That's right.
Yeah,
that is right. That's why I say he kind of set the stage for people like that.
The only Donahue show I saw was when he had this had the Ladies of Glow Wrestling on. I was a fan of that show. Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, he tended to do kind of like Oprah's show, kind of light interviews, but he would push a little bit. He would ask the questions I think that most Americans wanted answers to or whatever. He wasn't above challenging his guests at least a little bit, not to the point of like, schlock or whatever, and major drama or anything like that. But yeah.
Well, rest in peace. I'd sure like to watch some episodes of that MSNBC show he had on, but they scrubbed it. You can't even find it on YouTube. I tried looking because I was working on an essay once, and I was trying to quote something from one of the episodes I saw, and it was not on anywhere on the internet because they scrubbed the whole thing. So I don't know what they had to say about Phil Donahue.
That is interesting, and I would say that makes it very easy for you to be able to countermand any argument. You know, Phil Donahue said on his such and such show, blah 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 blah. No, he didn't, and you can't prove he did.
Yeah, because it doesn't exist.
That's how they rewrite history. That's why censorship is so insidious.
All right. X-Men 97 showrunner. Has this been verified? I think it's been verified. We're just trying to find out more of the gritty details.
This is one of those situations where it's he said, they said, and it's going to work itself out, I think, through the court system over time. But what they're saying is relevant as far as news goes. So,
X-Men 97 creator Bo DeMeo said his credits were stripped from the show's still in production second season after he posted Pride-themed fan art. But Disney-owned Marvel shot back, stating the showrunner was fired for egregious behavior following an internal investigation, while sources at the company leaked to the media that the probe looked at allegations of sexual misconduct. In a late Thursday post on his Instagram account, DeMeo expressed gratitude for the support he says he received from fans after he departed the show before its March debut on streaming service Disney+. However, I felt it pressing for me to speak up in the wake of leaving the show, he added. DeMeo included a pride-friendly illustration that looks like him, styled as X-Men Cyclops and wearing only the chest strap and tight-fitting bottoms in addition to the character's signature visor. It's like the Cyclops outfit without the blue part, the suit part.
Right.
Be like if Superman was just wearing the underwear, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
He originally posted the illustration on June 4th with the caption "Happy Pride." 9 days later, he said Thursday night Marvel sent a letter notifying him that they'd stripped my season 2 credits due to the post. Marvel issued a terse response. Mr. DeMeo was terminated in March 2024 following an internal investigation. The studio, which was acquired by Disney in 2009, said in a statement, given the egregious nature of the findings, we severed ties with him, and immediately he had no further affiliation with Marvel. Sources told Variety and The Hollywood Reporter that the investigation probed allegations of sexual misconduct and that they were a factor in the decision to fire DeMeo. Before he was let go, DeMeo completed writing on the show's upcoming second season. Variety reported that DeMeo credits on the season were removed due to a breach of separation agreement. Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Marvel and DeMeo did not immediately reply to requests for comment. Many fans were shocked, but DeMeo, whose career was so strongly tied to X-Men 97 series that Wikipedia redirects to its page about the show when you search his name, was sacked without explanation earlier this year. He'd previously wrote a Marvel live-action series, Moon Knight, and drafts of the screenplay for the upcoming Mahershala Ali vampire vehicle Blade. Upon its release, X-Men 97 was met with critical acclaim for its design, animation, and vintage feel. The Daily Beast in its review was positive, if a little more tepid than others. Okay. So he must have done something pretty egregious over there. I'd heard on another channel, I don't know if this was speculation or stuff going around the internet, that maybe he sent sexually suggestive illustrations to, I think, members of the male staff on the thing, because he leans that way. So that's what I had heard. This is me personally. I think X-Men 97 is overrated. I did not watch it because I do not trust Disney at this time. Well, I didn't watch it because I don't have Disney Plus, but I know some people liked it, and I'm kind of torn because I'm sure there's stuff in there I wouldn't like, but it sounds like it sounded like more effort was being put into that than other recent, I guess, Marvel, Disney, and Star Wars efforts. It sounded like, at least, but I would like a ham sandwich, but hold the mayo. Really? So I don't know. And the interesting thing about Disney is it wasn't like with Lucasfilm and Gina Carano. They must have kind of did it internally and just said, you're gone. We're not going to give an explanation for why. And then I think when he started throwing this stuff on Twitter, that must have gotten someone really angry over there, because basically they're trying to distance themselves from this guy and he won't let up. So then they finally issued why they got rid of him. They didn't give the details of what he did, but yeah, so does this surprise you?
Not at all. I mean, I don't know how I feel about this guy and his show because I've heard great things
Yes.
about this X-Men 97. And I think I would be a hypocrite if I were to condemn him for the dumb stuff that he's doing in his life, because that has nothing to do with what he's putting on screen, apparently. But apparently that's also the problem that Disney had with him.
What I had heard, I think at first he was told to knock it off, but he still continued to do it. I think that's what happened. I could be wrong. Like I said, this is hearsay I'm hearing online. Because I have a suspicion he would have gotten a pass, but just given a warning. But I just have a suspicion he just wouldn't let up. I don't know the full details, so maybe I shouldn't be speculating. But I don't know. You've never struck me as a big X-Men fan, though, right? They were not your favorite Marvel characters, is that right? I know.
Yeah, I've only really gotten into them as a result of the movies, so it would be wrong of me to claim any kind of comic book fandom to them. As far as Marvel goes, I was really only ever a Spider-Man fan.
Right.
A little bit the Avengers as I knew them from that 1960s motion comics cartoon.
Right. X-Men 97 reminded me of Samurai Jack Season 7, season made decades after the previous one that's close enough looking to show so little off, plus being quote-unquote more mature. I know that with the Samurai Jack, it was the creator that did at least make that final season. He's the one that was in charge of the show all along. Some people loved the last season, some people didn't. I mean, I gave him credit for actually giving Jack a love interest, even though there was it had a bittersweet ending. I don't know.
There was the only thing that I can say about this 97 thing that I heard was a little bit of snarky, and I mean that intentionally. There's a pun involved. Snarkiness revolving around the way that they drew Rogue. And right. Snarky J had a lot to say about it, and she made her point very, very beautifully. That's all I'm going to say about that.
Snarky J.
Yeah, it was the only time she did a cosplay video where she ended on a walking away. Let's put it that way.
Well, I know she's commented about how I think she was in the movie theater crappy seats, and these must have been really crappy seats because I got more cushion under there than some other. She made that point, but
yeah.
All right, let's go to the Acolyte. Let's move on from X-Men 97. That was
we're gonna have some things to say about the Acolyte. Let me.
You never know what the big story is going to be this week because I thought the Bo DeMayo stuff, and now it's like old hat. Now we're on to the Acolyte merchandise.
Honestly, I think a lot of people are getting very desensitized to all these Disney shenanigans. To be honest with you.
Yeah. The Acolyte merchandise and branding removed from Disney Store after announcement of show's cancellation.
And there is an update to this. We'll talk about that at the end.
The Walt Disney Company removed merchandise for the Acolyte as well as the entire brand from its Disney Store amid the show being canceled. Deadline's Nelly Adriva reported that the show was canceled earlier this week. She wrote the story of the Acolyte will not continue, with Lucasfilm opting not to proceed with the second season of the show, Star Wars offshoot starring Amanda Stenberg, sources tell Deadline. This report came after Nielsen released its data for the week Acolyte series finale. The show only managed to garner 335 million minutes watched. You okay?
Yeah, just a little cough. Sorry.
Okay, that's fine. That was less than the 2-episode premiere, which brought in 488 million units watched. Now, ex-user review bum Adam reports that Disney has removed all Acolyte branded merchandise from its Disney Store. As can be seen in the above video, when searches for the Acolyte, he is directed to a page that says no results found for the Acolyte. Furthermore, he searches for Star Wars in the filters for the movie show Acolyte no longer listed. One can see other shows such as The Bad Batch, Ahsoka, Mandalorian, Book of Boba Fett, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Rebels, The Clone Wars, and even Young Jedi Adventures. They are trying to bury this thing.
Mm-hmm.
This is my thoughts on this.
Yeah.
He also shared the event that you attempt to search for the character. No characters in the Acolyte show up. They're trying to bury this. I think they know what a disaster this has been.
So the update to this was in the days after this. There's been a lot of outcry from the so-called modern audience fans and some in the media that are still clinging to this DEI bullcrap. And some memorabilia did go back up on the store, but if you pay close attention to what went up, it's all print on demand stuff. It's like t-shirts that where they don't have to have any product in stock. They can like I say, print on demand. If you order a t-shirt, they can make a t-shirt, but they don't have to have any stock.
Interesting.
Yep.
I have a question though. Do you think this is going to get willowed?
If you had asked me when it was just this article that we were looking at, I'd have said almost certainly. Mm-hmm. But since they've backed off and put up the t-shirts and stuff like that, I'm wondering if they're getting cold feet. There's probably some stuff going on behind the scenes that we don't see. So maybe not, but
someone over Disney wants to get rid of this thing.
Yes, that's what I was getting at. There's a lot more happening too. It's really looking like everything that they had on Disney Plus, not just the Acolyte, is kind of going away, and they're starting to turn their focus to movies, whether that's The Mandalorian or whatever.
Well, we still have that Skeleton Crew show coming out. I'm assuming Skeleton Crew is probably going to be a one-off. Maybe it's not intended to have more than one season, especially with all.
And we'll see how that goes too. If this is another money loser for them, where nobody's watching it, that's sending some very loud messages.
But here's the difference. I feel like the Acolyte is saying some very. It's tarnishing the brand a lot more than maybe something like the skeleton. I mean, I haven't seen the Skeleton Crew yet, so maybe I'll be proven wrong.
Well,
but it seemed like the Acolyte was purposely just trying to mess with the Jedi themselves.
I think it's very clear they're trying to get away from the High Republic. I think that they were pressured into putting this out in the first place, and somebody over there at Disney is going, "Well, we did it. It failed. Sorry."
Is this the end of the High Republic period? All those comics and books, are they going to be scrapped too? Maybe not republished anymore? Is it going to be seen as a failure, this whole big experiment?
There was apparently a comic line that is supposed to come out that continues this story or something like that, or is a spin-off from the Acolyte involving, the one Asian character that got killed off in the last episode or whatever.
Yeah.
Which goes over really well. I think Disney should have learned the lesson. You kill off a character and then do a project about them. Doesn't tend to go over well. Didn't work real well for Solo. Didn't work real well for Scarlet Witch, or not Scarlet Witch. What's her name? Black Widow. You kill off a character, then give them a movie that doesn't work. Yeah.
I found it ridiculous. I was in my library and I think a book came through, and it was a book about Captain Phasma. Remember Captain Phasma? She was supposed to be one of the big villains of The Force Awakens, and then when Rian Johnson brings her back in Last Jedi, she's like killed off 5 minutes later. Like, that's it. They it's not even the fact that they get rid of the legacy characters. Even the characters they were trying to build up with their new, they would just toss aside because nobody cares. And then what? I'm going to want to read a book about this character you gave no investment to, in any of the sequel trilogy. Nothing they do makes sense. There's no planning.
Yeah.
And apparently, I think Leslie Headland was being interviewed, and I guess whatever that Jedi actor, the one who was on Squid Game that you just mentioned, I think at the end when he was almost when she was force choking, when he was gonna say it's okay or something, I think the showrunner was saying, well, that was benevolent sexism when he was saying it's okay or something, like when he's trying to show her, I guess, some grace or mercy or something. I don't get it. I think it's everything about this show is just completely disgusting. It's like, I don't know. Is this worse than The Last Jedi? I don't know.
I mean, it's definitely cut from the same cloth. Samuel Proctor says the High Republic is still going on. Well, that's really what the Acolyte was. This was the one live action, High Republic thing, and it was ratioed so badly. They really don't have any argument. all of their art, and even the entertainment outlets that are stumping for it still have no good arguments. They can't say it was a good story. They can't say it was profitable. They argue that fans like it, but the evidence all points to the contrary. They talk about people involved in it getting, threatened and, all kinds of negativity online, but I've seen no receipts to that, and they don't present any. All of those woke nuts protesting the cancellation of the Acolyte are not Star Wars fans. They are fans of being validated. Yeah. It's not like they were out buying the product or anything like that. And it really seems like most of them were people involved in the production, people that are fighting to keep their jobs, not anything else.
Who's being validated by this show? Who's a likable character on this show?
Yeah, you make a great point, because they all
like
come
this
off
diverse cast that nobody likes any of the characters, because the Jedi aren't really good guys on the show, at least from what I've heard.
Those of you that follow me on X, go check out Nate shared with me a how it should have ended clip. That is so funny. It's Yoda completely dressing down that green skinned
the Leslie Headland's girlfriend, or wife, I should say.
Wife, yeah. Exactly. It's
but
it's ridiculous. It really is.
How can I like it if it's stuck behind a paywall? Well, that's a thing too. That tells you
everything you need to know, right? Nobody was willing to pay to see it, and those that did pay for the show, or paid for the channel, either dropped it or just otherwise did not watch it.
Will this be recut in 20 years as a feature-length movie? The Acolyte, the original intention, as you meant to see it, as a movie.
You mean, will it get the
Alexander treatment, where they kept being, no, this is what I really wanted to do with Alexander. See this new cut; it's a good movie now.
Or I was going to say, like the Snyder cut concept.
Oh yeah, that's the same thing all over again.
Problem is, at least the Snyder bots had enough people out there to make it financially viable.
I've not watched the Snyder cut.
Yeah, I haven't watched either of those.
Black and white and 4x3.
I have not watched any of the Snyder stuff. I refused. I have absolutely refused. Ever since I heard that Man of Steel, killed Zod, I'm like, no, that's not Superman. I'm out.
I knew Man of Steel was going to be bad before I saw it. I was trying to convince a friend to see, because I had already seen Iron Man 3. I was like, I didn't see Iron Man 3 again. No, let's go see Man of Steel. And it's like, I had a bad feeling about Man of Steel going into it. Because Superman Returns, I also was not a fan of. But then you had Man of Steel, and it's like, that movie left a bad taste. The entire Snyderverse, and then I don't know what it became after he left. They kept it going after he had left.
The only thing that they can do, and see, here's another way to speak to the and man, I'm not picking on you. Your argument's valid, but my pushback on it would be that Disney released the Acolyte, saw that it was a loser, wants to take a tax write-off on it, and they can go back to their investors and say, we put so much money into it, we had to at least give it a try. It didn't work, so we're taking a tax write-off on it, and we're burying it. We're burying it, out in the desert with all those E.T. Atari games that we buried.
That really existed, by the way.
I know.
Covered them, yeah.
I know. But I also played the game, too, and thought it wasn't that bad a game. It's kind of sucked. But, there was something endearing about playing the ET character and collecting the bits and calling the ship and the what is it, 16-bit music of the ET thing?
8-bit. Not even with Atari, I don't know what it was.
Oh, I don't know. Yeah. It was a little bit endearing. And I could say the same thing about the Superman game too. Actually, the gameplay for the Atari 2600 Superman game was very, very similar.
Do you remember
much to it?
you remember the Superman arcade game? Have you ever seen it? Maybe you played it back in the day. I
Was
don't
that the
know.
one that was a side scroller punching,
Yep.
kicking thing?
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, I played it.
I like the fact they had the John Williams theme in it, but it's done with 16-bit, I guess,
Yep.
sound. And I was like, oh, this
Same
I
kind of
watched
thing.
videos of it. It's like that kicks butt.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh, yeah.
you know, it'd be funny. It was a 2-player beat 'em up. Wouldn't it be funny if the other person you could have played as in that Superman game was Shazam? That should have been the second player, right?
That would have been cool instead of the like Superman Red, Superman Blue nod.
No, I would have had to been Shazam because you could
Yeah.
basically do and maybe have him have a similar move set or at least something equivalent. So maybe he doesn't have the laser eyes, but he has something else he could do.
No, you know what would be great? Instead of the laser eyes, call down lightning.
Call down lightning.
Basically,
Yes.
the same thing, just the visuals are different.
Why do I come up with ideas that other people should have come up with ages ago? There's your beat 'em up. There's your Superman beat 'em up. Have Shazam.
Fan
be
theories
the
suck because they're better than what we actually get.
How would you do? You could have Wonder Woman in there too. That's how you could do a Superman beat 'em up, and I guess you could have Batman in a super bat suit with armor. No,
Oh God,
maybe not.
that would be good. It would be totally in keeping with the spirit of that game too, right?
Yeah.
Jeez.
Actually, I used to argue at the time you probably could have done a Batman beat 'em up with Batman, Robin, Batgirl, and maybe Catwoman as the 4 playable characters.
Thank you. I see. Yeah. I rely on people like David Pensek. There, he says 2600 music bit rate was 4-bit PCM audio.
That's something.
That just goes to show how ingenious they were at making it work. You know.
And how your imagination would fill in the blanks.
Yeah, it would, and they relied on that, you know.
Disney fined $36,000 for fatal fall on set of Marvel series Wonder Man. Is that still coming out?
Yeah, it is. And we had talked about this piece of news back when it first happened.
Couldn't they just? I don't know why Disney doesn't just give up the ghost of. I guess they can't because they sold it to investors now.
Yep.
But it's hurting them. I think Disney streaming is hurting them because they could just recut these series as movies.
Yep.
And just trim out all the fat though nobody wanted to watch anyway. And I don't know if it would save something like it probably wouldn't save She-Hulk, but
no.
Disney has been slapped with a $36,000 fine after a worker on the Marvel series Wonder Man fell to his death in February. JC Spike Osorio, Spike was his nickname, lighting technician, died on February 6th after falling through a rotten catwalk at Stage 3 at the Radford Studio in Studio City. A Cal OSHA investigation concluded that the catwalk had a deteriorated section of wood, which wasn't properly nailed to a roof support. The deteriorated ledger was weakened, likely due to age, environmental condition, and repeated stress loads over many decades, the investigative summary states. As the crew walked along the catwalks, the employees stood on the weekend section of the catwalk. Suddenly and without warning, the ledger supporting the floorboard broke apart and collapsed as the employee was standing on the section of the catwalk. The employee fell 41 feet and forcefully impacted the ground below. Yep. The investigation confirmed the account that a witness and 2 IATSE officials told Variety in February. The death prompted many studio facilities to upgrade their catwalks. The Workplace Safety Agency issued 2 serious citations to Disney throughout its production entity, EM Productions, on August 6th. Each citation carries a proposed penalty of $18,000. The maximum penalty the agency can issue for a serious citation is $25,000. Cal OSHA issued 2 citations to Radford Studio Center, both in the amount of $22,500, bringing the total penalties for both companies to $81,000. I have a question. Aren't unions, one of the reasons they exist is to kind of make sure this sort of thing doesn't happen?
Yes, it is, but let's face it, it's the kind of situation where unless the union member, and this is, please understand, I am not blaming the victim here.
No.
But him or someone, one of his coworkers or someone like him, have to notice it and bring it up to their union rep and say, I don't feel safe in this circumstance.
Do you think you think it could have been brought up at some point and people ignored it? That's what I
that's the kind of thing that would we'd only know about that if it comes up in some sort of disclosure, in a court case.
Yeah.
It's possible, but it's also possible that they just didn't notice it.
All right.
But then again, this is where, again, I take the victim side on this. It's not their responsibility to notice it. It is the employer's
It
responsibility.
should be. They should have a safety inspection of these sets every so often. I mean,
Absolutely.
I work in government facilities. We have safety inspections all the time. But Osario's widow, Joanne Osario Wu, and mother Zola Osorio filed a wrongful death lawsuit against Radford Studio Center in May, seeking unspecified damages. The suit alleges that the facility knew or should have known that the catwalk were in dilapidated condition and in desperate need
That
of
I
repair.
agree 100%.
Family's lawyer Eric Contreras said the investigative firm's the allegation in the civil suit. So of course they're taken into court. I feel horrible for the wife and his other family members. This is awful.
I'll tell you what, and this citation here, this fine that we're talking about here, it will almost definitely be cited as, hey, look, this was the right call. They were cited for this because they were in the wrong, and because they're in the wrong, we're seeking damages, the death of a human being, loss of income from the loss of this person, loss of consortium. Look up what loss of consortium is on the part of the wife. Basically, being denied her husband is basically a nice way of defining what loss of consortium is. It's they're going to hit Disney hard with this.
It's funny. I was almost going to yell at you for making an inappropriate joke, and I realized, no, wait a minute, you have a point here. I didn't even think about that. The clause in the Disney Plus subscription we talked about last week. Oh no, those dirty. What if he signed something as an employee when he was hired?
That doesn't matter. From the wife's, the wife is the one that's bringing this.
So she would have had to have had the Disney Plus subscription. I don't even want to think about this.
Well, that is something that Disney probably knows not to try to bring up at this point. This is the kind of stuff that is absolutely killing them in the court of public opinion.
D. Pensek, he mentioned the point, if the catwalk was in bad shape, how about the rest of the studio facilities? How about
you better believe?
How about the parks?
Yep. Well, this is all the kind of stuff that is going to be coming up now. The what do you call it? You mentioned the unions. The unions are going to start demanding that inspections be done on these things, or at least they should be if they're doing their jobs. And as far as the parks go, you better believe that the state of Florida is going to start looking into that, because they don't have Reedy Creek to hide behind anymore.
No, they should actually start investigating. Send some safety inspectors out there. I've heard that Chapek, they used to call him Cheapek because he wouldn't give money to the parks. And there's some things in the parks that are actually kind of dangerous, where if something got loose, they could hurt somebody. I've heard that. Except would I miss another unfortunate death, Disney related death, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But rest in peace.
Well, let me tell you something. We've talked about this a lot over the past year. Those that follow my MeWe group for Last Call, excuse me, not for Last Call, for Disney fans against Disney Star Wars. I have a MeWe group for that, and I don't know if I still have it pinned, but the pinned comment was an article from Midnight's Edge, or that Midnight's Edge at least made us aware of, was how Disney and its subsidiary National Geographic were directly responsible for the deaths of American
yes,
remember that one?
Yes.
And supporters of American troops
Afghanistan.
Afghanistan,
right? Yes,
exactly.
Yes.
And I mean, so literally, the mouse is killing people. And this, I'm not saying that as hyperbole. They are responsible for deaths of employees and American GIs, and it's
allies,
and allies and allies of American troops, and they're just evil. And then to try and get away with, but you subscribe to a free trial of Disney Plus, I will not let people forget these things.
You know who's never subscribed to a free trial of Disney Plus? Me.
Yours truly.
Apparently, some
Same
of my
here.
family got one with a thing, and he's like, I ain't redeeming that. That's what
Right. I no, I absolutely agree with you
Of course, we do
100%.
have Hulu. Maybe there's something in Hulu. I
I
don't
will
subscribe to
I
Hulu.
will never,
Supposed to be
never,
really good.
never let people forget these things about Disney at this point. And you can say all that you want about the evil fans, the istophobe fans that don't
Okay.
like the Acolyte. Well, let me tell you something. What I don't like is Disney as a company freaking trying to get away with killing people. Just saying.
Can they name one YouTube channel who attacked any of the actors in the Acolyte, except for maybe Amanda Stenberg, because then she put out that
Yeah,
awful
if you're
video.
going to say that fans were attacking, you better bring the proof at this point.
Ridiculous.
You don't just get to claim victimhood and not
Anyway.
show proof of it.
Who needs Disney though when we have Sega, right?
Yeah.
Oh boy, not really a great transition. I have
I
to give you
honestly
some.
don't know this.
What do you mean you don't know?
I don't. You're going to need to.
Neither does anybody else, and I'll explain why in a minute.
Okay.
Okay. Derek Connolly tapped to script Sega's video adaptation of Eternal Champions for Skydance. I love Jessica Hardo. He goes, he may know what I'm talking about. Okay. The Jurassic World franchise's Derek Connolly has been tapped to write Eternal Champions, a live-action feature adaptation of the Sega video game for Skydance. Deadline can confirm. David Ellison, Dana Goldberg, and Don Granger will produce for Skydance alongside Toru Nakahara for Sega.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting because I thought it was the American branch that worked on that. Never mind. I'll get into that in a minute. Robbery will exec produce with Amy Riviera overseeing the project for Skydance. A fighting game first released in 1993, Eternal Champions is set in a dystopian future where 9 fighters from different time periods and backgrounds are resurrected by an enigmatic entity known as the Eternal Champion. The game's premise revolves around a tournament where only one fighter can win the chance to change their fate and prevent their untimely death. So the idea is each of these fighters in this game were taken from their point of death, and now you can enter this tournament, and only one of these fighters can win, but if you win, then you can reverse your death, basically. Like you had one guy that was like a Chicago PI that got gunned down by like the mob or something. He's like a Sam Spade type, you know what I'm saying?
Sure.
And like another one was like an assassin in the 21st century because back then that was the future when this game was made, the 21st century. Anyway,
Yeah.
despite facing tough competition from giants like Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter, Eternal Champions developed a cult following that led to a 1995 release of sequel. Eternal Champions challenged from the dark side, as well as spin-off game Chicago Syndicate and Experts. Although the series did not continue beyond the 16-bit era, it remains a memorable part of Sega's legacy in the fighting game genre. So let me explain something to you why this did not continue beyond the 16-bit era. After the Sega Genesis and its many add-ons, Sega came out with another game console called the Sega Saturn. And the American branch at Sega were developing a 32-bit version of Eternal Champions, a follow-up game, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the Saturn was known as a 2D powerhouse. It didn't do 3D graphics as well, but it could really do the traditional the pixel art very well. But the trouble is Sega Japan said, we don't want this game competing with Virtua Fighter 2 that we're going to release on the Saturn. So we're going to scrap the project. And I think they were nearing completion of it too. But then Virtua Fighter 2 got very delayed. So basically, this game could have gotten released. It wouldn't have competed with this other game Sega was putting out. Yeah. Of course, there's always the whole thing is if you could always have them finish Eternal Champions and release it after Virtua Fighter 2, like a year later. You can hold on to the game and release it later. A certain company does that. A certain company called Nintendo does that all the time, although they may have a game already done, but they'll pace out the release schedule for it.
Yeah.
So it doesn't compete with something else they're releasing, but they won't just scrap it. I'm still a little salty about this. Basically, back in the 16-bit era, the American branch of Nintendo and the Japanese branch of Nintendo, they kind of worked together. They were more or less on the same page a lot of the time. Not all the time, but a lot of the time. Whereas Sega, you often got the feeling that the American branch and the Japanese branch were fighting with each other. And I think Eternal Champions got caught in the crossfire. But Eternal Champions Challenge from the Dark Side, that was the Sega CD follow-up, was a really good fighting game. And I was actually annoyed on that Sega Genesis Mini 2 that came out that was supposed to have that only had a few Sega CD games on it. They could have put this one on there. You own it. You could have put it on there. You didn't. So this is why I'm wondering, why in the heck does anybody care about this franchise now after Sega, in many respects, worked to basically, bury it for no good reason, really. But
do you think that if this does well, that maybe there will be some resurgence? And
who knows?
Gotcha.
I don't know how things work over there now. I wish they had put Eternal Champions Challenge from the Dark Side on the Sega Genesis Mini 2 at least. Maybe they'll do a re-release of it. The interesting thing about Eternal Champions, you can tell that what Sega would do, and Sega was very good about this back in the 16-bit era, if they couldn't get their hands on a game, they would try to make their own version of it. So I think early on, Nintendo had Street Fighter II exclusivity. They weren't sure they were ever going to get Street Fighter II. Eventually, they did. In fact, Street Fighter II came out around the same time as Eternal Champions. But I think they made Eternal Champions to kind of slake that thirst that their Sega owners who couldn't get their hands on Street Fighter II. Well, look, here's a 2D fighting game that's pretty cool. You can get this while you wait for Street Fighter II. And that's smart. That's why Sega has actually a fairly robust library for the Genesis of their own exclusive games. But
was that a pun? The Sega for the Genesis of their...
I don't know if it was. I'm apparently Connolly has been tapped to work on Sony's The Legend of Zelda. So here's the weird thing. This is a little known game franchise, but it actually has some pretty good lore attached to it. You have various characters. Like the one guy is like a vampire, but I don't think he's I think he's more like a Morbius living vampire type, or maybe he's an actual vampire, but his era is the Vietnam War.
Oh, interesting.
You have Trident, who was an Atlantean. That's why he looks weird with the gills and everything. So I guess the Atlanteans developed technology where they go underwater. You have one guy who looks like an alchemist. I think he knows some kind of alchemy or sorcery. He was in the Middle Ages. I think he got burned at the stake. Oh no, maybe he was around. I think in colonial times. That's pre-colonial times, like when the colonies were getting started. I think he got burned at the stake for witchcraft.
Oh, okay.
That guy's a caveman up there in the corner. The lady to the right, I believe she was like a circus acrobat. The one guy next to her, the guy in the green suit that looks like Geordie LaForge with the same kind of visor.
Yeah,
he looked like Geordie LaForge. He was actually my favorite character to play as, but he because I think he was a cyborg from like the 21st or something century. So they all have to fight each other and then fight the Eternal Champion to save themselves. The sequel had even more characters. One of them was an Egyptian prince who got assassinated by, I think, his uncle or brother.
Oh, wow.
But you can stop that from happening if you do this. So they added a bunch more characters even in the sequel. The other was like a Haitian voodoo priestess. She would have voodoo spells she could do on people and stuff. It was
so there was
so you could do a lot with this series.
There was essentially a different ending depending on what character you were playing and if you won.
Mm-hmm.
So what would be cool is if they did a movie and had multiple endings for the DVD release, and you could choose your own adventure. That would be a clever way to do it. Jesse says, Age of Boomer, the Sega game series I followed was the Valkyrie Chronicles. When the first game came out, it did well in Japan and for handheld. Oh, but the US did well with the console. Okay,
this was an interesting thing. Like when the PlayStation, basically when Sony came out with the PlayStation Portable and the PlayStation Vita, sometimes you, as a company, you could bring out the same game on both, like PlayStation 2 and PlayStation Portable. It wasn't quite as powerful as a PlayStation 2, but it was close enough that they could do some kind of a port of the main console game. Same goes for the PlayStation Vita versus like the PS3 or the PS4. They could sometimes bring the game out on both.
Sure.
So it was kind of interesting. So that's probably what happened is it did well on portables in Japan because that's why the Switch does so well in Japan, because even though people play it on TVs over here, it's really a portable system you can take anywhere you want. So but
and Mark Malnikoff stops in and says, "Greetings, Taraknan Poo, from deep within the dilithium mines of Praxis, just stopped by on my rounds.
Later Sega released Valkyrie Chronicles 2 and 3 come out for handhelds, never got a console release. Interesting. As far as Eternal Champions, though, you know what? It's your ship now. Do what you want with it. Maybe you'll make a great movie out of it. And if you don't, nobody's going to care because I'm sorry. Sega killed this series off a long time ago, so I doubt there's this huge contingent of Eternal Champions fans, except for me and a couple other people. Like, I wish they would have put the CD version on the Sega Genesis Mini too.
Yeah.
But what can you do? And there was a character in the Sega CD version called the Senator.
Okay.
That you could play as. I think he was an unlockable. He was based on Senator Joseph Lieberman, the guy who was trying to get video games banned. Remember?
Oh my gosh!
They put him in. Yeah, they made a character based.
That is so funny.
Oh, that's funny. And there were horrible fatalities in the Sega CD version. Like people were getting chopped up and stuff like that.
Oh, that's awesome.
Because they were because you had lighter fatalities in this game, but in the sequel you had even more. I think a dinosaur in the caveman stage, a dinosaur eats somebody or something.
Oh my gosh.
All right, here we go. You excited? Is anyone excited? Are people going to be booing me in the chat saying
I think the one thing I found interesting is that it's backwards compatible with 2600.
As the original Atari 7800 was.
That's kind of cool.
Atari is once again bringing back the past classic for modern gamers. Nearly 1 year to the day since the company revealed the Atari 2600 Plus, the company has unveiled a faithful recreation of the 7800 console, originally released in 1986. The 7800 Plus, which costs $129.99 and is scheduled for release in winter 2024.
Wait, that's what it costs now?
$129.99, yes.
That's not bad. I mean, that sounds like what it would have cost back in the 80s.
Yes.
Jeez.
It is dated hardware, Troy.
Wow, but still, I'm impressed.
Follows in the footsteps of the well-received Atari 400 Mini. I never picked that up by offering a scaled-down compact version of the console with HDMI connectivity. I bet you're going to can you get 720p out of this sucker, maybe?
Maybe.
Each day.
Yeah, make those pixels really, really big.
Oh, my goodness. Each day, one console created in partnership with Embracer Group subsidiary Embracer Group, they're involved with everything. Will ship with the all-new CX78 Plus wireless gamepad and Bentley Bear's Crystal Quest, a brand new game and sequel to the iconic Crystal Castles.
Oh, interesting.
The 7800 Plus will be fully backwards compatible with the original 7800 and 2600 cartridges, offering near perfect support for first and third-party games. And that's important because you're not going to be able to get Donkey Kong and Donkey Kong Jr. new on this thing.
Right.
Nintendo would never allow it. Also, Miss Pac-Man, apparently Namco doesn't own the rights to that anymore, and they had a big fight over that, so you're not going to see Miss Pac-Man on here either.
Right.
But you get Bentley Bear's Crystal Quest, which apparently was made by the homebrew community. I guess Bentley Bear, if Atari had lasted, it would have been their mascot character, like Sonic for Sega and Mario for Nintendo, you know?
Oh, okay, fair enough.
I don't know. Ahead of the upcoming appearance at Gamescom 2024, Atari has also unveiled other items a part of its Atari Plus platform, which brings its modern hardware under one common umbrella. First and foremost, a new selection of 7800 Plus games will join Bentley Bear's Crystal Quest, priced at $29.99 each, and all come with their own boxes and color-printed user manuals. I'll say this, I do like it when the manuals are in color. It's good you don't cheap out on that. Asteroids Deluxe, with new mechanics and two-player competitive modes. Bounty Bob Strikes Back, a sequel to Miner 2049er with 10 additional caves created by developer Robert D. Crisnero. 7800 Plus ports of Berserk, Frenzy, and Space Duel. The Atari 2600 Plus, and by extension, the new 7800 Plus, also gets a few games of its own. Cavern of Mars, an adaptation of the original 1981 game by homebrew developer John W. Campbell with new challenges and save feature. The Epics Game Collection, a compilation of summer games, winter games, and the cult hit California games. The M Network Collection, including Armor Ambush, Astro Blast, Frogs and Flies, and Star Strike, and Real Sports Collection, including Real Sports Baseball, Football, Volleyball, Soccer, Tennis, and Boxing, plus the never-before-released Real Sports Basketball. And you get a wireless gamepad to use with both the Atari 7800 and 2600 Plus that works with the original 2600 and 7800 hardware.
Wow.
What do you think?
It does look cool.
I
Leia
don't.
Plus Size says, honestly, I'd like to have that console. I kind of like it. And Nate says Atari was his first video game console. He and his brother used to spend hours playing Pong.
Will Pong be on this? I guess you can play the 2600 version of Pong. This was Atari's attempt to battle the NES.
Yes.
Because originally Nintendo came to Atari and said, would you like to release the Nintendo Entertainment System in North America? And Atari said, no. We'll release our own game console. Thank you very much. That was a horrible mistake.
Oh.
I keep imagining what Atari might have done to some of those Nintendo franchises. Maybe they would have turned The Legend of Zelda into a He-Man game or something.
Who knows? Who knows?
But I don't know. But the trouble is, the games need to be there. There weren't a ton of games out for this thing because it did not meet the market. But like they said, the homebrew community, and they're making original stuff for it. So who knows? Maybe it'll be an interesting oddity to pick up. But they're going to have they should release the 7800 version of Dig Dug. That should be on this. Remember Dig Dug?
Yes. Yes, I do. There was a lot of games that came out for the 7800 that I never played on because I didn't have an Atari 7800.
Yeah, because that was
but
the
I was
console.
I was able to get them on
computer.
Yeah, I think it was Commodore at the time.
Commodore probably had a lot.
A lot of the games came out on Commodore.
And so there you go. The Atari 7800 Plus. I'm torn on this because the sound is not good on this system. It has the 2600 sound card.
Oh, okay.
So the 5200 had a better sound chip, even though it had a horrible controller. This used the same sound chip, though oddly enough, apparently Commando came out for this. That was the famous Capcom arcade game. When I was looking at video of it, I'm saying, this looks and sounds better than the NES game. And then I found out later on that you can actually make they made a custom sound chip for the cartridge.
Wow.
Because that's what Nintendo would do with the NES. People think that the NES was this big, powerful console. It was really the cartridges was where a lot of the stuff came from. Super Mario Brothers couldn't be handled by the NES alone. It had to have a special mapping chip inside the cartridge to make it work. So I don't know. Maybe if the homebrew community has been working on stuff and they can come up with special cartridges, maybe this might be worth picking up. But if you want to play Donkey Kong, you got to find the old cartridge on eBay. That's all I'm going to warn you about. Okay. There's ain't no way Nintendo is going to release this. Part 3, however, years later, Valkyrie Chronicles 4 came out on consoles and did well, which some people were hoping for a remake and remaster console versions of 2 and 3. Well, Sega may do it. I don't know why companies do and do not do remasters sometimes. People have been screaming about Nintendo doing a sequel to F-Zero, but I figure at the least they could do is just redo F-Zero GX on the Switch. They could probably do a remaster of that. People would eat it up. But okay, that's a futuristic racing game. All right, Alien Romulus.
Yeah. So
I know more about this movie than I'd like to. That's all
I have to admit I have not yet seen it, but I know that Big Al and I think
Deleted Scenes did
have both done reviews.
Maybe somebody else did.
Go check them out.
Anyway. Alien Romulus ripped into the domestic box office at $41.5 million, marking it the second highest start for the Alien long-running franchise. Those ticket sales were enough for the newest chapter in Disney and 20th Century Fox's sci-fi horror saga to end the 3-week reign of Deadpool and Wolverine, which just overtook Joker as the highest-grossing R-rated
which
movie
is kind of brilliant because that's Disney basically, cutting its own throat. And putting out a movie to compete with its own movie. They're both Disney, by the way.
Well, they're both 20th Century Fox, right?
Well, yes.
There's no 20. Actually, I forgot. It's 21st.
But
Century
Disney
Studio.
can claim it on their earnings report. See, that's the thing. You don't want those two in the theater at the same time.
Yeah. But let's go to the next article. I just wanted to basically say it's doing well. It did well. I had fun watching this movie. Okay. Well, like I said, I don't know how Al felt about it. I'm just saying. But something happened in it which bothered me. Go ahead and post it, will you?
Yep. Why is it not coming up?
Alien Romulus.
Oh, there we go.
The Alien Romulus filmmaker Fede Alvarez has another hit in his hands on top of the Globe Week, 110 million. The Uruguayan writer-director's ninth installment in the Alien franchise has critics and audience increasingly rare alignment as Romulus boasts third highest marks behind Alien in 1986's Aliens, the Interquel. Do you like that word, interquel? Because it takes place between Alien and Aliens.
I guess.
Which placed it 20 years after Ridley Scott's seminal science fiction horror from 37 years before James Cameron's action-packed sequel. May be well received critically and commercially, but a few polarizing moves per the consensus. I'm just going to go to the main polarizing view.
Sure.
Another point of contention as some viewers is the return of the late Ian Holm's likeness. When I first heard about this, I'm like, oh, isn't it cool? Well, I guess I don't really know why they'd have to bring another Ash-like android, because the whole point of Ash was that he was kind of put in there covertly to think he was another part of the crew.
Right.
So why would he have been standardized and made?
And we have also seen a different model, right? In
Bishop,
exactly.
David.
Right. So we have never seen two of the same model. Why do you need to bring back the same model?
We did with Alien Covenant, because you had, I want to say his name was Houston, but the funny thing was they were both played by Michael Fassbender, but they looked different. Like David had blonde hair, he had like dark hair. So he actually had a sort of different look, even though they were played by the same actor. But okay, but I actually thought, well, they probably just wanted to get Ian Holm to do the part one last time, and then I forgot that Ian Holm has been dead for a number of years, hasn't he?
Yes, yes.
And I don't know. This is he felt that it should have been used twice, I think, because he said we saw Lance Henriksen over and over again. But I said, well, again, I don't know if there were ever multiple Bishops established. Bishop shows up in Alien 3 because they rehook him up, right?
Right.
And then the scientist that made the Bishop android shows up, and then I guess his ancestor shows up in Alien versus Predator, right? Or that was just a different character altogether. But I think the Alien versus Predator movies have been written out of the timeline, right?
Probably rights related, but I as far as I'm concerned, it's still canon.
I don't know, but I get weirded out when they bring dead actors back for movies like they did with Peter Cushing in Rogue One, but I don't know.
I understand.
But
I still say you should recast. You should not, try to Frankenstein.
Yeah, but Alien Romulus dropped 60% in second week, and the budget, including marketing, was like 125 million. So they shouldn't be celebrating yet. I'm kind of curious. I thought maybe this would have been like, because it's an R-rated horror movie, it might have been on a lower budget, but maybe not. I was hoping Aliens is going to attack the Romulans. I'm disappointed. Yes, well,
yeah, I thought that too. When I heard Alien Romulus, first thing I thought is there some sort of a Alien Star Trek crossover happening here or something? I wasn't clear on what they were doing with that. Mananui says, I thought Alien versus Predator wasn't considered canon to start with. Well, Mananui, that again comes back to who decides what's canon, right? Is it the franchise owner or is it the fans? And I think even your normie type fans would say, well, aliens are aliens. It's all canon, right? If it's in a movie, it's canon. And I tend to kind of feel the same way. I mean, there's certain films in the Alien, Predator, and AVP series, plural, that I didn't think were all that good. But I will consider their storyline as canon, and it's all part of the same, whatever. Sure.
Michael Fassbender was the best part of those Prometheus and its sequel, because he played a really good android. The androids end up being some of the more interesting characters in these movies. Red Letter Media Review had,
kind of like the Blade Runner series, which, by the way, could be considered to be in canon as well.
With the Alien movies.
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
No. I feel like going on some rant.
It's your show. You do what you want, but I'm just saying. And
you on the Friday stream can start explaining how they're part of the same thing. I like Predator more. That's fine. They did a Batman versus Predator comic back in the day. Remember that?
Oh yeah.
I remember that. And they did a Superman versus Aliens comic, I think, at one point too. Yeah, they did that. But yeah, okay. So that's just the up. I don't like them bringing back dead actors. Just cast a new actor as an evil android. That's you can do that. It's okay.
Exactly.
Just stop bringing back dead actors. You had
And
the actor who played Krennic was good in Rogue One. You could have either had him just play Krennic or have him play Peter Cushing because he probably would
or
have been good enough to play the. I mean
or the other thing
Donahue
too
guy.
is with the alien androids. I mean, it's you could say they're the same model, but they all look different. Each one has a unique appearance. There's no reason that you couldn't do that.
I
Yeah,
don't
this is the
know.
same model as Bishop. He just looks different and has a different voice. You know?
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Best part of Prometheus was the ship. Oh, there's always interesting things, even in the Scott directed prequels, which I'm still angry because we didn't get the what is it, the Blomkamp sequel, which was going to be a sequel to Aliens,
That
where
actually did look good.
Newton
Yeah,
Hicks were alive, and that's
yeah,
the one we all wanted, but
that
Ridley
would have been
Scott
good
stepped in and put the kibosh on that.
because Ridley Scott is an asshole.
But okay,
He should
anyway,
he should take a step back and literally fuck his own face. I hate that guy.
okay, well, moving right along and feeling fancy free. Oh wait, I already did that. That was the last
I
article. Okay. Did you watch this trailer, by the way?
did. Hmm.
Okay.
The only problem is I had
Uh,
no frame of reference
I have no.
because I don't know where this story comes from. We were
I
speculating it might have been
don't.
like the
Well, wait
Silmarillion
a
or
minute.
something like that.
But do you need a frame of reference though when you go to see a movie? You should be able to go in there without having the frame of reference, right? I mean, this is just
Well, I guess.
okay.
But then they're going to have to, within the context of it, tie it into Lord of the Rings somehow.
This trailer bothered me for a number of reasons. For starters, it starts out showing the Peter Jackson Lord of the Rings clips from the Lord of the Rings trilogy, and I'm thinking, New Line, Warner Brothers. I love the Lord of the Rings trilogy. It is over 20 years old. Stop pretending it's a recently released movie. It's not anymore.
Right.
I just they're now they're trying to turn into a franchise. You can't turn Lord of the Rings into a franchise. I think that's the problem. They're trying to do all these spin-off movies, and I know Amazon's doing their own thing. That's a whole nother animal, the Rings of Power
Yeah.
nonsense. But
Yeah.
okay, I'll go ahead and read the article. Succession star Brian Cox is the voice of Helm Hammerhand, the sword-wielding King of Rohan, and Gaia Weiss voices his daughter Hera, leading the resistance against a deadly enemy in the trailer for New Line Cinema's anime prequel, Lord of the Rings: The War of the Rohirrim. I kept wanting to call it the Worry Room, which
I
dropped
believe
on
it's
Thursday.
pronounced, I may be wrong, but I believe it's pronounced Rohirrim.
Rohirrim.
Yeah.
Tolkien and his
Well, that's the problem. It's written
Tolkien.
out. Unless you hear someone say it, you're not certain if you're
I have
saying
to
it
keep
right.
calling him Tolkien because he used to always call him Tolkien when I was a kid, and now
Yeah.
it's Tolkien. In fact, it's funny in in the biography movie about Tolkien. The teacher pronounces his name in first class. He's like, Mister uh, uh, Tolkien, and he says, actually, it's a Tolkien. He says that. Nicholas Holt played him
Jesse
in the movie.
apparently agreeing with me, and Leia Plus Size says, I well,
Oh,
before that, she says, I have been a Tolkien fan since I was a kid, and this trailer has a lot of red flags in it. It's Netflix He-Man all over again. I don't see Tolkien in it.
well, I have another theory on what they're trying to go for with this movie. I'm going to get into that in a minute. I think I know what they're trying to do, and I think it's not working, but that's just my opinion. Succession star Brian Cox is the voice of Helm. Okay, I already said that. Set in the epic world 183 years before the events of the Lord of the Rings trilogy, the King of Rohan is forced into a last stand in ancient Hornburg after a sudden attack by the vengeful wolf voiced by Luke Pasquale-Leono. That forces Hera to lead a brave fight back against an enemy intent on the total destruction, as the Tolkien world, inspired by J.R. Tolkien, gets its first big screen heroine. You mean Middle Earth, right?
Yeah,
Just not
right.
the you know nothing of war, the King of Rohan tells his daughter dismissively at one point in the teaser trailer. I'm the fastest rider you have, Hera shoots back as the trailer has her raising her own mighty sword on horseback and fighting back against her kingdom's enemies. Kenji Kamiyama directed the anime feature, The Lord of the Rings War of the Rohirrim, which is set to theaters worldwide December 11. 2 days later, on December 13th, reached domestic theaters via Warner Brothers Pictures release. My theory about this, and they already said the writers, they're actually, I think they're American writers who worked on the Lord of the Rings movies before, or they're not. It's being animated in Japan, but that's not where the script is coming from. But what this reminds me of, it reminds me of like they're trying to make a fake Ghibli movie, a fake Studio Ghibli movie. That's what I'm seeing.
Oh, I see.
Studio Ghibli movies tend to have center around female leads, but they even said in the interview when they were saying we're trying to get away from the whole girl boss thing. So they're not trying to make our girl boss character, though what I saw in the trailer kind of maybe defies that, but maybe they're not. But
well, given that though, the way marketing goes these days, I'm starting to see a lot of this where they market it as though it's woke, and then it turns out to not be woke, which doesn't help them any when fans kind of give backlash based on what they perceive. So,
anime seems like the wrong kind of animation style for the Lord of the Rings. The whole thing is a love letter to European history and mythology. Maybe old Walt Disney animation style or even medieval styles like the Wolf Walkers would be more fitting. Well, what's interesting is the original Hobbit animated movie and Return of the King animated movie, I believe they were animated in Japan, even though they were, of course, the designs were made in I guess by Rankin Bass and animated over there. So you can give a Japanese
one was Rankin Bass, the other one was Ralph Bakshi.
I'm thinking of the Return of the King movie that came out by Rankin Bass. You're thinking of the Lord of the Rings movie by Bakshi.
Right, exactly.
Yes,
exactly.
But
honestly, a third animation style wouldn't, in my mind, be too.
I think it might have been cool if they had gone back to the style we saw in those old Rankin Bass Hobbit things. Just maybe make it better animated.
Right.
And I'm sorry, deleted scenes has a point. It is coming off as a girl boss movie, even though they're saying that's not their intent. Yeah. I'm seeing Ghibli. I'm thinking that maybe in Japan they're going to market this as like a Ghibli movie because Studio Ghibli tends to take a lot of Western author books. They did, the book The Borrowers. They adapted that in the Secret World of Arrietty. They also did Howl's Moving Castle by Dan Wynne Jones. They did Legend of Earthsea. Ghibli did that, which was a disaster, but the other two were pretty good. But this isn't being done by Studio Ghibli, so I don't even know why I'm saying this, but I'm just saying it kind of gives off that like we're trying to make an almost Ghibli style movie based on it's just something about this whole thing feels off. Also, the trailer is weird to me because Hera says, "I don't want to marry you," and I'm thinking, why don't you want to marry him? It's something. This is a medieval era. Women marry. It's like the joining of the kingdoms. He's a handsome man. It looks like he seemed to be asking you respectfully for your hand in marriage, and that doesn't make any sense to me.
I also, like I said, not knowing where this
apparently
story
she knew him since they were kids too. I mean, this sort of arranged stuff used to happen.
Right.
Well, apparently from what I heard in the original story, she's mentioned, but she's not one of the main characters. I think they were trying to maybe they thought they could take creative liberties with this character because you're not really going against Tolkien if you're giving someone who doesn't have much of a role in the story doing it from her point of view, because then you get to do with whatever you want. Rankin Bass doesn't look like anime. That's my point. Well, Batman the Animated Series didn't look anime either, but you can have a Japanese animated studio. In fact, it's funny, Little Nemo in Slumberland, which actually is technically a Japanese anime production, but was animated in such a way to make it look like an American production. And it was based on an American property. Still did bad at the box office, but that was a weird experiment. You can use Japanese studios and have them do things in a different animation style if you want them to. Woman doesn't need no man. Tell us how you really feel, Troy. What did you think of the trailer though? Because I'm thinking, well, first off, the trailer kind of spills the beans on something like the two kings get into a fist fight, and then I guess the good king breaks the guy's neck as he punches him and he dies, and of course the son wants revenge. And I'm thinking, why am I supposed to think that this son is a villain? I'm sorry, if you're the prince and this other king kills your dad in front of you,
right?
You kind of have to retaliate, even if it was an accident. But it wasn't an accident.
And I'm just wondering how much of the story is from Tolkien and how much of it is If it's not like 99% Tolkien, I am probably not going to be interested. Although there was one scene in it which did make me kind of chuckle. There was a
What?
scene towards the end where someone
No.
was collecting up rings and
No.
throwing them into a bag, and he's like, "What? Why is everyone so interested in rings?"
Are
I
these
almost, I
the
almost
rings that Soren was collecting that belonged to the other, like the Elven lords
maybe,
and the Nazgul? Is that what he's
but
collecting there?
it did make me feel like it was a shot across the bow at the Rings of Power.
Oh,
You know, I was like,
I didn't even read that. I took it as, hi, there are other stories in Middle Earth besides Lord of the Rings, and that wasn't just
yeah,
the trilogy.
that's
This takes
true.
place, but we're still going to bring it back to Lord of the Rings because we can't let that go.
Right.
You know, it's like I'm not even arguing that Japan shouldn't be allowed to animate it. That's fine. Just the thing it shouldn't look like anime. It doesn't. It feels weird to me too, Samuel Proctor. I'm not arguing with you. Um, Something about this whole thing feels off, and I was originally on board with it at first, and now I'm just after seeing that trailer, I'm not excited. I'm just not excited. And it reminds me of when the Lord of the Rings of Power said, well, apparently New Line's going to be making Lord of the Rings movies too. And one of the writers of Rings of Power said, well, there's plenty of stories to write with Tolkien. And I basically said, no, they're really just two. They're called The Hobbit and they're called The Lord of the Rings. And that's it.
Yeah.
And you've already done your Hobbit movies, which don't get me started on that kind of trash fire, which I wanted to be better than it was. In fact, I know you say there's a cut out there that supposedly cuts all three into one movie. But
Yes.
it,
Mananui says, I don't even have access to Netflix anymore. You're what we're probably getting at here is that you're
okay.
probably not really missing anything, Mananui.
All right. So this is like, and I don't know the story, but apparently the enemy combatants supposed to be apart from the Easterlings, the people who normally go to war against the people of the West. Oh, were these the ones that end up working for Sauron in Lord of the Rings? The men that were working for Sauron. Remember, there were some human soldiers
Oh,
on that side.
right.
Maybe that's
Yeah,
who those are supposed to be, and maybe the king suspected that this was a trap. The
that
whole
makes sense.
proposal of marriage. I don't know, but I don't know. I don't. Let's move on. I have a bad feeling about this, but
Yeah, me too.
to overuse a Star Wars line, oh no,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah, well, we've been following this piece of news for a while now. We got to bring you the update. Paramount merger saga continues.
Are
Go
those
shop.
executives or puppets from the video? This is the world we live in by Genesis. I'm sorry,
Why
I
not
didn't mean
both?
to.
Go shop period extended as Edgar
Land of
Bron
Confusion. That's right.
Bronfenmingensen vies with Skydance boosts his offer to 6 billion. Wow,
Feel free to
interesting.
cut me off. I'll read a little bit from this. I
Okay.
ain't reading the whole thing. This goes on forever. What's the gist? Okay, Paramount is taking more time before an official handshake with Skydance, using an extra 15 days allotted in their merger to explore another bid. A surprise last-minute offer from Edgar Bronfman
See, you're
Jr.,
doing it too. I don't know on this one.
one that the heir to the Seagram liquor fortune has just sweetened. Well, it must be sweetened better than Seagram's ginger ale, which is not good. Okay, I'm sorry. The special
Well, I don't like ginger ale in general, but I like their wine coolers.
Coca-Cola oddly puts out the Seagram's ginger ale. If that's related to the same company, I don't think it's as good as either Canada Dry or Schweppes. I don't like it.
Agreed.
The special committee at Paramount's board, which has been overseeing the sale process, acknowledged in a statement that it has Mr. B's proposal at hand and extended the go shop period for Bronfman only through September 5th. It will expire 11:59 Eastern Standard tonight for another potential bidders. There could be no assurance this process will result in superior proposal. The company does not intend to disclose further development unless and until it determines such disclosure is appropriate or is otherwise required, the committee said. Why does this guy want Paramount?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know his motivation. I don't know. I don't know what he's getting at here.
So he can fire everybody and laugh and collapse the studio. Just give it over to Skydance, unless they're trying to get Skydance to bid higher because someone needs to get a big fat payday. after leaving a company, they probably ran into the ground. That's just my opinion. Bronfman originally submitted a bid worth 4.3 billion on Monday night. The updated version includes 1.7 billion to cash out some Paramount shareholders. Bronfman's bid includes 40 million kill fee, which Skydance stipulated should Paramount opt to go with another suitor. The decision to extend came just hours before the midnight deadline. PAR's special board committee, which has met several times today, will now be taking a very close look at a bid for the heir to the Seagram liquor fortune and former media executive. I got to tell you, I have a friend who was in liquor delivery. That's a good line of work to get in if you want to make money. Apparently. Bronfman assembled about 20 investors from funds to high net worth individuals and financiers for $4.3 billion package. Former child actor turned crypto magnate Brock Pierce and Kazakh's businessman Nural Alev was the initial consortium, no longer part of the group. Okay, this is so. What's the gist of this? I ain't going through all this. Bronfman, who is this? He's the one that wants to own Paramount now.
Yeah, and
Why?
It doesn't surprise. Well, that is the better question. It doesn't surprise me that Paramount would be looking for as good a price as they can get. Is this going to become a bidding war? I don't really see Paramount being.
Part of me thinks that Skydance. Part of me with this thing is funny. If Skydance is an actual production company, movie studio, I could see them maybe turning Paramount around.
Right.
I don't know what this guy has to do with anything and why he wants to purchase it. And I these executives I could care less about, but I know there are a lot of people employed in these companies that are probably going to lose their jobs. I mean, they may lose it anyway if Skydance buys out. I don't know. I want competent people in charge of these studios. And
so if this ginger ale wine cooler guy ends up buying it, what's going to change? Nothing's going to change. It'll just be him owning it, and the same people that are running Paramount now will continue running it. No one will lose their jobs, right? Because it's not like he's got a whole studio to bring in and replace people with.
I have a question. Could this also piss Skydance off to the point where they don't want to work with Paramount anymore?
I was thinking exactly the same thing.
Because some of their biggest hits have been through Skydance.
You take a bid from someone else. So, okay, what are you going to offer? That's too rich for me. I'm not that interested. Bye. And my prediction is in the next 10 years, Paramount goes completely belly up. I honestly think that Skydance is right now their best bet to stay afloat.
Hold the phone. Redstone and Bronfman are friends, so this is just Sherry Relations' way to get Skydance to pay more money. Wow.
And that if you know that, then Skydance knows it too. And if I was Skydance, I would walk away and say, "It's yours. Bye."
Yeah, go. You're already having a decent relationship with Apple. You could probably work with them on stuff. Ridiculous. I'm sorry, Paramount piss. Who doesn't piss me off these days? I mean, there's Warner Media, there's Disney, and now there's Paramount that keeps making awful. See, at least if these Star Trek movies like this, if they had been not on streaming, and if they had to be out there in the market where they had to sink or swim.
Yep. Like, this is what we've been saying all along. You're hiding the numbers, putting out crap that doesn't make you money, B, nobody wants. If you were on a commercial network, you would be forced to say, okay, people aren't doing this, we got to do something else. You would not be able to continue to embezzle the money of the shareholders to put out your communist propaganda.
Yeah. Awful. I don't know. I don't get it. Oh boy, Discovery.
How about a sequel you don't need, but is probably going to still be good?
All right, I got to do a little backstory on Cliffhanger. Cliffhanger came out summer of 1993. I remember this summer, same summer as Jurassic Park.
Rewatch of this over on deleted scenes, and I think at the time it was Jedi Bill's channel.
Action Cinema, right?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah. This was, of course, the big the two big action stars came out with two movies that summer. Arnold had his Last Action Hero. Stallone had his Cliffhanger.
Yep.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say I kind of remember Cliffhanger doing slightly better, but someone else could look up the numbers for us.
I give my tip of the hat to Stallone because I have a problem with Last Action Hero. I know the movie has its fans. You're probably one of them. Do you remember Abbott? Tom Savini made a point that he was talking about horror movies, right? And because
Oh yeah,
he was involved with the zombie Living Dead movies, and they said Living Dead
yes, he
movies had
was.
become kind of silly. How do you make zombies scary again? And he said he remembered back to when they made Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein. And he said up until that point, Frankenstein, Dracula, these were scary monsters. People were afraid of them. But then Abbott and Costello met them, and they were no longer scary. And I
Right.
kind of feel like with Last Action Hero, it might have done some damage to the action genre
I
because
agree.
I think it pointed out to find a point all of the cliches and things at the time. I actually like when movies come out like decades later that go after genre films, like Austin Powers going after the spy movies of the
Scream,
'60s.
for example.
What? Yeah,
Scream,
or
for
Scream
example.
with the slasher movies. Yeah, exactly, where they do it after these things have died out naturally. Because
Yeah.
I don't know if that hurt them. So, but here we have Cliffhanger, which is a good old traditional.
Yep.
Rennie Harlan directed this Stallone action movie. I thought it was a good action movie. It's
Cliffhanger is
yeah,
an excellent title for so many reasons. I
yeah.
mean, it's on the nose. It's yeah. It's once you hear the title, you basically know what the movie's about.
Should have done Cliffhanger for good old days. Now I'm thinking about it, but anyway.
Oh yeah, I
But
guess.
I didn't even see it in the theaters, which was a mistake because I think I caught it on video, or maybe I don't think I saw it in the theaters. But I remember thinking at the time, this is a solid action movie. It had that what do you call it? It had there's this wonderful scheme to steal. Was it bearer bonds or money from like a government transport plane?
Yes.
Like the feds were involved. The feds get messed up in this, and John
Yep.
Lithgow's the villain.
Yep.
And then you have like his goon squad that work for him, like the former Australian soccer player. That was
Yep.
one of the guys, and you get to see Stallone take these guys out in short order because, of course, Stallone is a expert. He's a park ranger. He's an expert at climbing the mountains. In fact, there was this horrible tragedy where this woman fell to her death. That
Yeah.
was
The
the
wife of a
yeah
friend of
of a
his.
friend of his, and like
It
their
is
relationship got strained.
tragic.
And
Yes.
he blamed himself, and the friend blamed him. Though it was really just an accident. It wasn't his
Yeah.
fault. There was nothing he could do. But it was a and you kind of see the friendship get mended as they're both trying to survive. And there's a love interest. I forget, played by the woman from Northern Exposure. She's in this, right? And it's
Yeah.
just, which is funny because I think this also takes place in Alaska, right? But
Yeah.
excellent action movie. Really liked it. A sequel? Well, I used to say you couldn't do a sequel to the Rocky series with Old Man Stallone, but they proved me wrong. So
Yeah.
let me read a little bit from this. Sylvester Stallone, 78, is set to return for a sequel to his 1993 action thriller Cliffhanger. Screen is reporting that Cliffhanger 2 has received major fund from an Australian film commission. Will start production in September, October. The original's Rennie Harlan has been replaced by Jean-Francois Richet Mezzarine as director, and a script by Mark Bianchio Hunters, and is being used to shoot the film. Stallone reprised his role as Ranger Gabriel Gabe Walker. The original was pure escapist fare, nothing more, nothing less. Well, there's nothing wrong with that. John Lithgow stole the show as the villainous Eric Quaylen.
Yes.
You need a good villain being the heavy for this because he was
Right.
really good as the villain. There's a wonderful line when he says, "I have to admit, Walker, you're a real piece of work. Well, I have to admit, Quaylen, you're a real piece of shit." That's what Stallone
Yeah.
says to him, and I laughed because that's just what your action heroes did back in the day.
Right. Right. Right.
They would give it
Exactly.
back twice as hard to the villain. We also have plot details coming in for Cliffhanger to via screen now, living in the
Okay. So
Dolomites where he runs the exclusive mountain lodge.
Nate
When he
confirms I was right that Cliffhanger made 255 million. Last Action Hero made 137 million. So yeah, Cliffhanger
okay.
did better. Yeah.
Oh, this is interesting. He lives in the Dolomites where he runs an exclusive mountain lodge. When he and a high-profile client are taken hostage during an adventurous weekend trip, his daughter has to use all her climbing skills to outwit the kidnappers, triggering a battle of life and death. Please cast Bianca Brie as his daughter. Jean-Claude Van Damme's daughter.
Oh God, that would be awesome.
I'd like her to get a starring role.
Yes,
I think she has the chops. I'd like to see it happen.
That would be brilliant.
There aren't many 78-year-old rock climbers, but if any actor pull it off, it's Stallone. Whether there's an audience for Cliffhanger,
well, it doesn't sound like though he has to be the rock climber.
He's in semi-retirement in this.
Yeah.
Obviously, he's running a mountain lodge, so he still takes people out on the mountain excursions, but he's not doing the stuff he did in the first movie. So maybe, you know what? I'll give it a chance. If Stallone's involved,
if Stallone is involved in it, it's probably going to be good. Again, I don't think it's necessary, but I kind of feel like why the hell not? You know what? And in fact, based on this, I've already got my my double feature lined up for tomorrow night. Mm-hmm. But maybe the following week I'll do Cliffhanger and Last Action Hero.
Hey, you know what? That'd be an interesting double bill because one is my opinion the last action. I'm not going to say it's the last action movie, but it felt like the last action movie.
Yeah.
And then you have the movie that killed the action star in a way. Leia plus size. Does it need a sequel? Is it trying to be Top Gun Maverick?
Maybe.
They probably are trying to go after the Maverick money, but
maybe.
if the script's good enough and evil.
I mean, I would have said that the Top Gun didn't need a sequel, but it did so well. I'm not even mad at it, right?
It's okay. Frankly, if it's just Stallone
Take care,
killing bad
Matanui.
guys,
good night. Thanks for hanging out with us.
It's just Stallone killing bad guys, and we need a charismatic villain.
Yeah. And I don't even care that it's a daughter, you know? I mean, I'm not so just because you have a girl, you know, being the next generation of the story doesn't automatically make it woke. I know that Stallone's not going to make it woke, you know?
I'm wondering, Christoph Waltz is the villain, maybe? I don't know. I don't know. All right, time for the last article of the night. This one I know you're happy about.
I thought I had.
I agree with you, Agent Boomer. You should put up a picture of Bianca Brie. I don't have to. Troy, if you want to get that while I'm reading the article, maybe if you want to.
Yeah, I will.
If you want to, okay. Yeah. Or I could do it. I don't know.
No, go ahead, read.
Okay. Blake 7 is one of British sci-fi's greatest, most subversive cult classics from the mind. Oh, wait. Excuse me. A doddering old man tonight. Hold on. Okay. Blake 7 is one of British sci-fi's most subversive cult classics from the mind of Dr. Scribe Terry Nation. After he'd sent the nation into Dalek Mania in the 60s, this 1978 show was wildly ahead of its time with ideas as bold as its budget was threadbare. Imagine if classic Doctor Who had less money and more balls, and you get a rough approximation of what Blake's could be at its very best. Now, at long last, the series is getting a familiarly loving home release treatment. Today, the BBC lifted the lid on a brand new Blu-ray remaster, Blake 7 The Collection, styled in the vein of the corporation's lavish Blu-ray remasters of the classic seasons of Doctor Who. The first of Blake's 4 series will release later this year, including a brand new remastering of the series, available for the first time on Blu-ray. After an infamously rough home release history on VHS and DVD decades prior, complete with all new practical model work for the show's visual effects sequences. The first volume of Blake 7 The Collection will include all 13 episodes of the Series 1, as well as new interviews with surviving cast and crew, and a previously unreleased documentary planned for the show's DVD release, The Making of Blake 7. Set in a future where much of the galaxy is ruled by the iron grip of Earth's totalitarian government, the Federation. I thought it was called the Terran Federation on the show.
Yeah, Earth Federation, Terran Federation, doesn't matter.
Blake 7 follows Gareth Thomas Roche Blake, a legendary resistance fighter who is captured by the Federation and his mind wiped, leaving him an upstanding worker until those suppressed memories reawaken when Blake witnesses a Federation security detail gunning down a meeting of protesters. This was rather ruthless when you watch it on the show. I was rather shocked. Caught and tried under false allegations, Blake is shipped to a distant prison planet where he meets an unlikely group of scoundrels and convicts, breaks out and returns to life fighting back against the Federation rules and its cunning architect and wearer of many absolutely wild and fabulous sci-fashion look, Supreme Commander Severin, played by the legendary Jacqueline Pierce. I didn't get the feeling that she was in charge of the Federation. She was just high up in charge of certain parts of it.
She was... I think she was Supreme Commander. She was at least
head?
Yeah, she was charge of the military, and effectively that meant she was in charge of the government.
I do like it when she gets that one guy to go after Blake, the eye patch man.
Oh,
The
no,
recurring
not
villain.
oh, what was his name? It wasn't Tarrant. It was um,
Terrence.
wait a minute.
Was it Terrence?
No,
Something like that.
Del Tarrant was one of the crew later on. It was Travis. Travis, yes.
And he hates Blake.
Yeah, and he had reason to, and you find out more and more about their history as you go. Casting
great
changed after the second,
yeah,
after the
that
first season.
threw me off, I'll admit. But I'll get used to it, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, I thought both actors were good.
We're really
to
good,
be honest with you. Yeah.
Avon, played by Paul Darrow, climaxing infamous. Oh, we won't talk about the finale, but
yeah, that's one of those ones that I want to talk about it, but it's like, oh, that would be like super spoiler territory. But it's also a great example. Terry Nation, of course, was the creator of the show.
Yeah,
he was the creator of the Daleks. That's right.
And many Doctor Who episodes. Yeah.
The story of Terry Nation and Blake Seven is in a lot of ways very similar to Michael Straczynski and Babylon 5, in that he had this long narrative and he had it mapped out by seasons, and so he knew where the show was starting and where he intended it to end. So after 4 seasons, he had his finale, and that was what he had planned from the beginning, and that's all there was to it. So I really did like it. A lot of things about Blake Seven. There were episodes that were just terrible, that were just, Star Trek, old Trek style, like Spock's brain type stuff, or some of the worst old Doctor Who, especially with some of the bad special effects. But there were also some really great episodes. All the mainline political intrigue, revolutionary stories were really good. I just watched, because this got me thinking about it, I watched my absolute favorite episode called Countdown, where Avon, who is the dude in the back right in this picture, computer expert, hacker, he's an anti-hero. That's the only way to describe him, and he is sharp. He's got some of the best lines in the movie, and you find out they go to a planet that is staging their own revolution. He has gone to this planet to find this Federation officer named Provine, who knows where a certain installation is that Blake wants to strike, that has been moved. But when they get there, the insurrection has caused the Federation officers to start a doomsday device, and it's on within hours the whole planet's going to be destroyed, and they're trying to stop it. Well, Blake and his ship here, the Liberator, they're the only ones that have teleport capabilities in the Federation because it's alien technology. So they're able to beam down, and he says, well, we'll help you as best we can. We'll try to help you defuse the bomb, but if we can't do it, I'm beaming my people out of here. And I can take some of your people with me, but not the millions of people you have. So the only people that are capable of doing it are, of course, Avon, and one of the mercenary that was hired by the insurrectionists by the name of Del Tarrant. And it turns out that Del's sister had a relationship with Avon, and she died as a result of it. And he blames Avon, and he had said, if I ever see you again, I will kill you. But they have to work together. And Avon even puts his life on the line to help this guy who's going to kill him anyway. And the interplay between them, it's a very contained kind of story, but it is, the dialogue between the two was just brilliant. I think I'd like to do a watch party of it sometime. It would be great.
Yeah, well, actually, funny Geek Flag was saying, Troy and deleted scenes. Maybe when you were finished with Twin Peaks, you could do Blake 7. I hear what you're saying, but I have a suspicion. I think I know what series Troy wants to do, or after Twin Peaks, which I know he's going
I
to
don't
say
even know.
that's interesting, because I don't even know. I'll tell you after stream, but maybe something with Blake 7 someday would be a good idea. Yeah, but
I think maybe what I might do is maybe a Monday night rewatch of the episode
yeah,
countdown and
countdown.
then
Yeah,
a follow-up where we find out what happened to the girl.
there you go.
And there's a bit of a twist. That might be good. Speaking of the girl and a bit of a twist. Yeah.
Holy cow, she can do the splits.
Yeah, that's
There's Wonder
Bianca
Woman.
Von Dam.
There's Wonder Woman for you.
I know, right? She would make a perfect Wonder Woman.
Yes.
She of course that's the obvious pose because that's
The dad's the splits. He used to do the splits.
Exactly.
The
only reason I think maybe not have her in a Cliffhanger would be because I'd like to see her in a movie with her father,
That's fine. Well, then, it'd be funny if they had Jean-Claude Van Damme as the villain.
Oh, that would be good. Yeah,
he can play villains. He was actually pretty good as the villain in that one Expendables movie. Actually,
that would be brilliant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But hey, Droid, maybe when we but what? Oh, actually, what I want to mention to you though. But yeah,
I know you're a little bit distracted there.
Nice looking actress, but I think she could definitely be an action star. That was my whole point, though. But that's it for Geeky Geezer. I guess I should have left off on Bianca Breen. Remove that. So we're finished for the week. We have stuff coming up after midnight, though, right?
Yeah. Were you able to set it so that we could automatically go over to deleted scenes after this, or no? See, I knew we didn't have enough time before the stream for me to teach this boomer how to do that.
I thought I did it, but if I didn't do it, how do I do that?
Yeah,
you'll have to walk me through it.
I'll have to walk you to it, and I don't think we have enough
paste
time
it in the chat though,
tonight.
if you'd like, or I could do it. I could post a link to the other side of midnight.
Yeah, I'm going to do that. I'm going to do what I do every week so that you guys can go over there.
So, when my stream ends, it sends people right over to the next thing?
And I'll teach you how to do that for next week.
You know what? I did do a cut and paste like you told me to.
What you did was you made it so that deleted scenes could forward people to you.
Oh, but not the other way around.
What you have to do is go in and tell it. You would have to take that link and share it directly in YouTube. You've got to set it up so that.
Well, you can walk me through it, or does that be done each time for each stream, or does
it would be? Yeah.
Okay.
So which is easy to do. You just make it part of your setup for the stream for next week.
Okay.
And,
it's so easy, even I can do it.
I believe I'm always learning. But there's the link to his stream, so be sure to check it out. He always has great guests. Who knows? Maybe I'll pop. Well, I can't pop on tonight, but who knows? Maybe sometime soon I can pop on there.
Yeah. Well, it looks like I'll be there. I just got the invite, so I'm going to be over there. So,
but tomorrow night you're going to do a double feature, correct?
Yes, tomorrow night it will be end of summer, last Monday in August. So I'm doing Corvette Summer and American Graffiti. A lot of connective tissues between those two movies. We'll talk about that tomorrow night. That's 8 Central, 9 Eastern on my channel.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Because it's at the end of summer. I could tell because my first day of school is tomorrow. Online classes.
See? There you go.
Hopefully I won't be stress boomer like I was before. We'll see. And then Tuesday night I will be on with you and deleted scenes on his channel for Sparkwood 21, which
7:30 Central, 8:30 Eastern. Yep.
Back to the Dougie show as it should
be.
In fact, are we going to get to see something with a certain Mr. Belushi maybe on that episode?
Oh, I don't remember. Maybe.
I feel like he had more of a role than what I've seen so far, so I know he's going to be popping up again.
He is in it later, but that all revolves around a cherry pie. So,
all right. Well, I wish your youngest a great day at school tomorrow. All right.
There you go.
What was I going to say though? And then we have nothing on Wednesday, but on Thursday on Netter's Network's Thursday,
a certain tired midnight blogger is going to be on with Netter. That's Curtis Selby will be on Thursday things with Netter. That's 9 Central, 10 Eastern on Thursday.
I feel like the Midnight Blogger should say everything is very hush hush. Like L.A. Confidential. Remember that?
Oh gosh, what's the line? It's
I forgot the whole line, but it ends with hush hush. It was Danny DeVito would always give it out. Remember?
on the something.
You could probably look it up
on the QT something and very very hush hush.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what it was. Oh gosh, that's another movie we should do.
It is when we did it on soundtrack with Birdman because it has a great soundtrack by Jerry Goldsmith. But yeah, I haven't done that on. I don't think you've done that on your.
Oh, I got it. It's Off the Record, on the QT, and very hush hush. That's what it is.
I love a good crime murder mystery.
Didn't Danny DeVito do that line?
He did that line. He was the reporter in that.
Yes,
the
he was.
Reporter in that.
Yes, he was. Great movie.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to write that down. That one's gonna have to be. That one's gonna have to be.
So you think Hollywood's bad now, but it was always bad if you watch LA Confidential.
Yeah.
Hmm?
Yes, but he's quoting LA Confidential.
And then on Friday, we're going to be on your stream where you might be doing a certain topic there, right?
Yeah, unfortunately, I wish that I could now change the order in which I'm doing things because I think LA Confidential would go along very, very well with the topic for this Friday night. So this Friday night's last call, and I do encourage, although I don't encourage alcohol abuse. It's abusive to not let you drink on a Friday night. So Friday we'll be talking about some of the political ramifications of some things that have been going on the past couple weeks. I don't usually talk politics on Friday, but darn it, our country was founded by men talking politics in a pub. So I think that's very, very on brand for us.
We promise not to try to destroy anyone who disagrees with us, though, right? As long as they don't try to. I'm joking, of course. I sent you a Dr. Phil thing earlier about how people, how bad the political divide in the country is right now.
I will only.
How people on both sides are fearing for their, because they're extreme. I mean, I don't know. We'll talk.
I will only take umbrage with people if they are unwilling to listen.
There you go.
If you're not willing to listen, then I'm unwilling to listen to you. And Deleted Scene says he'd be down for LA Confidential. Yeah, I'll bring you in for that. Absolutely. So there you go. And I think
we'll try to keep it civil.
You had your chance to say no last Friday when I decided to do it. But I think it'll be good. And Deleted Scenes, I think unless you think of something else, I may just keep the LA Confidential night just a single movie because that's a very meaty movie with a lot to talk about. And I'm not sure I'll be able to go into a second feature after that. We'll see. We'll talk about it. But Woogle. All right. Well, welcome and thank you so much.
Would you have jars near you and you're selling them online? I'm kidding.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I hear there is a market for that, I suppose.
Keep in mind when you buy that fart in a jar from that sexy lady on the OF, it may be some guy next to her.
I heard she lost her YouTube channel. Actually, I didn't hear it.
One of them lost the ASMR. I think it was the Amaranth.
Oh no, I'm sorry. It wasn't the bathwater one. It was the one that was on the attack.
She's the one that did the farting in the jars. I don't want to talk about it.
That's kind of gross.
I don't even know what that's about.
It's
let's not. You know what? I've already been demonetized. If I already had money, I'd be done. Tonight, just by bringing that up. Let's move on.
Well, there's nothing to move on to. Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, Friday. Saturday, of course. Oh, no, wait a minute. There's a Deleted Scenes. Don't you have a watch party with Big Al Friday before last call? The reason I say it is because I know that it's Netters Network Retro Cinema this week.
Is it Ghoulies 2? Ghoulies Go to School or something along those lines?
No. It's Drop Dead Fred with Phoebe
that's a good one. That's a good one.
Yeah.
And then Saturday?
That was Saturday.
Oh, okay. And then Sunday is going to be, of course, you can watch, I believe, Western Cinema with Outlaw Bill and Deleted Scenes. And also you can check out the official pre-show Geeky Geezers, which is unscripted, which
Unscripted,
can
yeah.
sometimes get political.
Yeah.
And then you will show up here where we talk about the latest pop culture news, and then I don't know what we'll be talking about next week. But
Because
I
it
have an
hasn't
idea.
happened yet, right?
I have an idea of something that might get announced, so we might be talking about that. But,
Well, there we go.
all right,
So there
so
you
y'all
go.
have a good week. I'm tired, but it should be a good week. Let's have a good week, everyone, huh?
Sounds good. Good night, everyone.
Gray skies are gonna clear up. Put on a happy face.